She grabbed the potato stalk and pulled hard. Looking at the plump potatoes, her face brightened. They seem to have grown well. Finally, my efforts have paid off. After harvesting a basket full of vegetables, she said cheerfully, "Honestly, this result isn't surprising at all." She looked down at the rows of fresh vegetables at her feet, excitedly observing how lush and fertile the garden was. Lifting the basket of vegetables, Ilas Spencer Ballon happily exclaimed, "I think this is enough for today." She looked at the garden with a satisfied expression. "No one will know there's a field hidden behind this forest." She paused, thinking, but I wasn't interested in farm work before. 14 years ago, my mother, who held the Spencer fortune, passed away. And according to the law, that everything she owned would be inherited by me, her daughter. But the Duchess of the Spencer family, Duke Basil's wife, took it all. After that, the Duke quickly remarried and replaced all the servants in the castle with his own people. Then, Duke Basil turned his back to her and said coldly, "Ilas looks very shocked. She will be sent to the convent to recover." I was abandoned. There was only one path up the hill to reach the Vieira convent. And behind the Vieira forest, there's a cliff. There's no way to leave that forest without going through the convent. The nun led her to her lodgings. A noble like you surely needs a quiet and private place. Ilas Spencer Ballon looked at her future accommodations with a shocked and frightened expression. It was an old, moldy house. The nun said mockingly, "We've specially prepared it for you. Since then, the convent has sent me food every day, but it's so bad that I'd rather starve than swallow it." She frowned, remembering that time. "It was enough to kill someone, but I'm still alive. I pretended to be sick so they wouldn't be suspicious, and I found a way to survive." She walked slowly on the grass. "It would be great if I could continue living like this." Nearing her home, from afar, Ilas Spencer Ballon saw two people standing there. Seeing them, she was startled. Looking closely at the two people in the distance, she became panicked, confused by the presence of the convent people. She quickly ran back to her house. Once inside, she quickly hid the basket of vegetables under the bed. Then, quickly grabbing the cloak on the table, she put it on, thinking to herself, "Hurry, hurry." The two people from the convent stood in front of the door, calling, "Lady Ilas, we've brought you food." At that moment, the door opened. Ilas Spencer Ballon appeared with a gloomy aura. This startled the two people from the convent, who cried out, "Goodness." She looked at them and spoke in a voice like someone on the verge of death. "Thank you for today." Seeing her like this, the two people fearfully stopped her from speaking further. "All right, don't say anything." She raised her hand to cover her mouth, feigning a cough. The two people from the convent looked at each other, exchanged glances, and nodded. After giving her the food, they quickly said, "Well then, we'll be going." Ilas Spencer Ballon took the basket of food and went inside. Then she quickly tossed off the hood of her cloak. She threw off the smelly garment and sat on the bed, sighing. "No matter how many times I smell it, I can't get used to this stench. That's strange. Usually, only one person brings food, but today there are two. Are they father's henchmen?" This puzzled her. Why the sudden change? Night had fallen. She thought to herself, "I have to get to the bottom of this." Ilas Spencer Ballon, dressed in a nun's habit, opened the convent kitchen door. The kitchen was an absolute mess. Two rats were approaching a block of butter on the table. She looked on in disgust. It was even messier than last time. She quickly reached for the butter. "I have to grab some butter and sugar while I'm here," she thought, holding a piece of bread. "I can find fruits, vegetables, and meat in the forest, but there's no way to find sugar, flour, butter, or milk." Just then, the sound of footsteps startled her. Someone's coming. She turned her back to the two nuns entering, trying to reassure herself. Calm down, calm down. They're the nuns I met before." The two nuns entered and, seeing her, thought she was in charge of cleaning. The dark-haired nun, paying her no further attention, turned to the other and said, "Who is this guest that has the Mother Superior so excited? There seems to have been a large donation." She looks delighted. Ilas Spencer Ballon, holding a plate of food, breathed a sigh of relief. "So that's it. I thought they wouldn't care." The two nuns continued their conversation. "Did you hear? There's a girl abandoned in that wooden house." Ilas froze. The dark-haired nun looked at the brown-haired one and asked, "Lady Ilas?" The brown-haired nun scoffed, "Lady. She's in this convent to die." Ilas was stunned into silence. The nun continued, "After all, her father was murdered." The dark-haired nun asked in surprise, "What? So she's the countess now?" The brown-haired nun replied, "That's right. but I'm asking who came today. The dark-haired nun answered. It was someone sent by the late Duke's wife. Ilas was shocked. The image of that woman flashed through her mind. If it was the Duke's wife, Duchess Camilla. The dark-haired nun continued. I'm not sure, but according to the law, inheritance procedures must be completed within a week of death. If the estate isn't settled within that time, things get complicated. The naive dark-haired nun said. So they want to keep Lady Ilas here for a week. The brown-haired nun looked at her exasperatedly. You're so naive. Then they should just leave her alone. Why send someone? Then the brown-haired nun smiled mysteriously. She said to the dark-haired nun, they probably want to take care of the problem by sending someone here and making a large donation to the Mother Superior. The brown-haired nun continued, probably to get rid of her without leaving a trace. Ilas' eyes widened in fear. The dark-haired nun said, this mess needs to be dealt with. Ilas ripped off her cap, her face filled with terror. They came to kill me while I'm abandoned here. I cried all day from the shock. As she was crying, a loud noise came from the window beside her, startling her. Catching the broken window frame, she thought the window's broken. Ilas Spencer Ballon, her face streaked with tears, looked outside. It's so cold. Holding the window frame, she wondered, how do I fix this? The adults always did this for me at home. Time passed by. I grew up and gradually accepted this life. I was abandoned with no one by my side. I sat on the bed, reading a book. Beside me was a plate of bread. Just as I was about to reach for a piece of bread, I stopped. My stomach growled with hunger. I was so hungry. I put the book back on the shelf. I couldn't even move. I think I'll just glance at the pictures of the fruits. I'm too hungry to read anything. Next to the book I was just reading was Residential Forms in the Southern Food Empire. Culture and Food in the Empire. Hunting Survival Guide. Social interaction phrases. In the hut the hunter left behind when he departed, I learned many important things for survival, thanks to reading the books and journals he left behind. After that, I discovered that plot of land. A plot of land for farming. Holding a shovel, Ilas Spencer Ballon said excitedly, this is perfect. She dug into the earth with the shovel, full of enthusiasm. Let's turn this place into a field. Eggplants, beans, potatoes, here I come. I'm sick of black bread. Thinking back to those days, she hurried back to the house. Opening her bag, she put all the vegetables she had into it. I can't die here. How could I have struggled to survive like that? They bring food every 2 days. They just brought food today, so no one will come again until that man arrives. I have to escape now. After preparing everything and changing her clothes, she held the pendant around her neck. This is the only thing I have to take with me. At first, I planned to leave here, but then I thought that plan wasn't much better, and maybe I'll return to the capital someday. In the past, at the Spencer Mansion, Ilas's sweet voice rang out. Mother, mother. She ran to her mother and raised her hands. Ilas's mother quickly embraced her. Ilas nestled in her mother's arms, giggling. Ha ha ha. Her mother stood up and looked at the garden below. Ilas, my daughter, one day you will be the one to take over this beautiful estate. Can you protect this place? Little Ilas looked up at her and hesitantly asked, can I? Ilas's mother gently replied, of course you can, because you are my daughter. She took off the necklace she was wearing and put on Ilas. Always cherish this necklace. Looking at the necklace, her gentle voice echoed again. Whenever you face difficulties, look at the garden and wear it to pray. Then you'll find help. Her expression softened. She clutched the pendant in her hand. Ilas Spencer Ballon thought to herself, if someone comes tomorrow to eliminate me, they'll discover I've escaped. Even if I have one day to spare, I'll be caught soon if they ask the convent people for help. She recalled the conversation between the two nuns. He said no one is allowed to approach this wooden house until he returns. Thinking of something, she smiled triumphantly. That's it. I can escape. She quickly ran through the forest. As she passed by her garden, she tilted her head to look at it. Regret filled her heart as she looked at the garden. Ah, it's almost harvest time, but I can't eat them. She looked sadly at the vast garden. Will I ever be able to plant and cook again? Then she silently lowered her head. Goodbye. Take care. Standing before the cliff, the wind picked up, blowing small leaves past her. Ilas Spencer Ballon looked down the cliff face with trepidation. No matter how many times she came here, the height was terrifying. Surely no one would think she'd dare to escape. It was hard to believe at first when she read the hunter's diary. She parted the grass, recalling the diary's mention of climbing equipment hidden on the cliff. Behind the grass, a stake driven into the ground and a long rope came into view. She dropped the rope down the cliff face and slowly began to descend. The first time she climbed down, she was so scared she cried. On the weekends, the convent didn't even give her their meager scraps. She would climb down the cliff and go into the village, selling the books she had read and memorized. Gradually, she became better at haggling to get a fair price. She used the money she earned to barter for many things: seeds to plant in the fields and different sets of ordinary clothes. Gripping the rope tightly, she gritted her teeth and continued her descent. Did they think she would give up in a place like this? The wind picked up, causing her to sway precariously as she climbed. Finally, she reached the bottom. She leaned against the cliff face, catching her breath and looking at her scraped and trembling hands. Then, she clenched them tightly. A look of steely determination filled her eyes. She had to endure. Looking at the dark forest before her, she thought to herself, this is just the beginning. In the dead of night, a monk emerged from the forest, sent to kill Ilas Spencer-Ballon. He carried a sword and a rope. His grip tightened on the sword hilt. Looking at the house where she lived, he thought she must be asleep by now. He assumed he could dispose of her easily. He gently opened the door. As soon as he stepped inside, his foot caught a rope tied to the bottom of the door. Instantly, the rope wrapped around his leg and yanked him upwards. The would-be assassin cried out in fear. What is this? Then, his hand landed on a snare trap on the floor. His face paled in terror. From inside the house, his agonized scream echoed ag. In the distance, the capital city gradually came into view. Ilas Spencer-Ballon, on horseback, looked at the city before her and gasped in awe. Wow, her face lit up. I'm finally back. Looking at the bustling capital, her voice filled with joy. Back to the capital, where Mother lived. She stood at a corner, observing the people passing by. The city was more crowded than before, probably because of the war. 5 years ago, the Beast tribe had crossed the Eternal Mountains in the north and invaded the Empire. The Empire, largely unaware of their existence, was unprepared for such a large-scale invasion and lost almost all of its northern territories. This led to a mass exodus of displaced people seeking refuge in the capital. The empire quickly rallied its troops and recruited from many families to join the army. And the most famous of these recruits was the mercenary king, Hakan. He always concealed his face, so few knew his true identity. But the mercenary king's reputation spanned over 35 years, so she guessed he must be over 50 years old. A year ago, the emperor bestowed a title and many other rewards upon Hakan and many others for their service to the empire. She walked slowly down the road, assessing her surroundings. The war was over, but its aftermath lingered in the northern lands, and reconstruction had only just begun this year. So the people here still couldn't return to their homes. She felt somewhat despondent. What should she do? She was certain there were many people working for Camilla in the mansion. According to imperial law, those who are unmarried are not recognized as legal adults. Furthermore, if a parent dies and the child is already a legal adult, they must declare their intention to inherit the title. If that doesn't happen, the title is passed on to the surviving spouse. She was in a hurry. A week had passed since her father's death, so she needed to get married immediately. And the person she married had to meet 3 conditions. First, they had to be a noble. Second, they had to be single. Third, they had to report their marriage to the main office within 3 hours. Regarding the first condition, marrying a commoner would only cause more trouble, so that wouldn't work. And for the third condition, because the office closed at 6 o'clock, her gaze became determined. There was only one option left. She stood before the mercenary guild. This is it, she thought. Ilas Spencer-Ballon held a cloth bag containing all her money, 50 gold coins. She looked at the mercenary guild with some apprehension. People said you could request anything here, as long as you paid. She frowned, thinking someone too greedy would be troublesome. I need to find someone reputable, someone not obsessed with money. I'll offer them something else. Just as she was about to enter, a loud voice shouted, 10,000 gold coins. This made her freeze. What? She hid behind the door, watching 2 mercenaries talking. The one with the scar over his eye said, I've never seen anyone pay that much just to find someone. The one in black replied, I know, right? This isn't going to be easy. He continued, but there's something strange about it. A 22-year-old girl, blonde hair, emerald green eyes. Someone from the convent recently. Hearing this, she pointed at herself in disbelief. Is that me? The mercenary in black stepped out of the guild, saying, how do they think they can find someone with just that description? Ilas, frightened, pulled her hooded cloak over her head and turned away. Hiding in a corner, she watched the mercenary in black say to the one with the scar, well, we better try before someone else finds her. The scarred mercenary replied, right? Ilas Spencer Balan frowned, her expression darkening. The name Camila surfaced in her mind. The clock in the capital chimed. She startled, looking up anxiously at the time on the clock. Her heart pounded with increasing urgency. It's almost 6 o'clock. I don't have much time left. Her hands clenched. She clasped them together in prayer. Oh God, could you please find a husband for this servant of yours? Then she cried out, anyone will do now if possible. Suddenly, a man fell and landed right in front of her. Did he just fall from the sky? At this moment, a bald man appeared, shouting angrily, you bastard. Did he just jump out the window? The man in front of Ilas groaned repeatedly, ow, ow, ow. Ilas looked at him in astonishment, then turned a puzzled look towards the bald man. He roared, give me back my money. He continued, I heard you've been going around bragging to the ladies that you're a baron. You got lucky killing a bunch of beastmen in the war, didn't you? Ilas was stunned. She looked at the groaning man, then back at the bald one, who was approaching with a menacing swagger. Now, can you lend us a few coins for a meal? The thug behind him grinned malevolently and rolled up his sleeves. Ilas clutched her cloak's hood, watching them warily. Are they guards from the gambling den? I guess this guy's out of luck. Better to get away before I get caught up in this. She started to move, but her foot bumped against a wooden crate beside her. She stumbled, knocking the crate over with a loud clatter that drew the attention of the two men. Oh no, she thought in a panic. The bald man spotted her and bellowed, who the hell are you? Ilas stammered fearfully, I'm just passing by. Please ignore me. The man angrily waved her away. The groaning man on the ground lifted his head, revealing part of his face. Seeing the dismissal, Ilas quickly replied, yes, sir. I'll be going now. But just then, the man on the ground reached out and grabbed the corner of her cloak. Ilas froze. Ilas Spencer Balan said irritably, what is it? What's wrong with you? Suddenly, the man lifted his head, revealing a handsome face, and called out, darling, don't go. Ilas's face was a mixture of confusion and alarm. Darling, you. She gave a nervous laugh. I think you've mistaken me for someone else. The man continued his performance. You told me to go out and earn money. Remember, don't. His eyes became mournful. I did all this for you. Ilas responded frantically, no, never. I don't know anyone like you. Hearing her voice, the bald man said, it seems that woman was quite young. He and his thug exchanged puzzled glances. I thought I heard an older voice before. Panicked that the bald man was still there, Ilas thought he's still here. The bald man and his thug approached, cracking their knuckles. Say, Missy, are you really his wife? The man on the ground hid behind her. Ilas trembled and stammered, wait a minute. No, I'm not. As they continued to advance, Ilas gulped, watching them warily. Suddenly, the bald man said, if that's the case, you're quite lucky to have another source of income like this. He and his thug shared a lecherous grin. If your husband wants you to be more proactive in bed, shouldn't you give us 50 gold coins to cover what he borrowed? Including the interest, of course. Ilas was stunned into silence. Proactive or not, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks, she thought, there's no way I'm going to bed with this man. She raised her hand to explain. No, I'm not his wife. Before she could finish, the man on the ground cried out, darling, it's just 50 gold coins. Give it to them. Are you going to abandon me? I'm so hot and handsome. Hearing this, Ilas Spencer Balan yelled, let go of me. I don't know you. The man didn't listen and grabbed her hand. She wouldn't let go. She looked at her hand, tightly gripped by the man, bewildered. I feel like I'm being held fast, unable to move. What kind of strength is this? He whispered to her, do you have 50 gold coins right now? He smiled and asked, if you do, could you lend them to me for a while? She looked at him, stammering, thinking what? The man continued to whisper, I promise I'll return it to you. As if hypnotized, she replied, all right. Clutching her chest, she thought, what's wrong with this guy? Blushing, she thought, is he using some kind of magic? How can he steal someone's soul with just his voice? The bald man, seeing the two whispering without handing over any money, reached out. What were they whispering about? Ilas was pulled back and cried out, hey. The bald man's face froze. It was as if flowers appeared in the air. Ilas Spencer Balan also looked on in astonishment. The The man's hood fell back. She stared at him, dumbfounded. Oh my God, he's really handsome up close. The man shook her coin purse in his hand. Here, take your money. She stared at the purse in his hand, aghast. Huh, when did he take it? The man looked at her with a smug expression. The man tossed the purse to the bald man. She cried out regretfully, no. He quickly caught the purse. He opened it, checked the contents, and said with satisfaction, excellent, a full 50 gold coins. Then he looked at the man and extended an offer. But if you don't have any money, have you considered working for us? He continued, customers would love you with that face. You could make a fortune. Hearing this, the man frowned in displeasure. No, he took Ilas's hand and refused. I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. Then he bent down and kissed her hand. I'm the type of person who will only obey one person. He looked up and asked her, right, my love. She became flustered by his actions. What was he talking about? Suddenly, the sound of a musical instrument rang out. Ilas Spencer Ballon raised an eyebrow in suspicion. A flute. The man waved to the bald man and said, my father has already paid you, so let's end it here. She was still bewildered, looking around. Then he pulled her along. Come on, my love. The two of them ran to another location. After running for a while, Ilas Spencer Ballon leaned against a wall, coughing. Cough, cough. He stood behind her, chuckling. Hey, are you all right? He looked at her apologetically. I'm sorry for suddenly dragging you into this. It just happened that way. He continued, we'll have to walk a bit, but if we go to my place in the west. At that moment, the clock chimed again. Hearing the chimes, she became anxious. I'm running out of time. Seeing that she remained silent, he asked, hey, are you listening? Are you really a nobleman? Startled by the question, he stammered, well, I am a nobleman. An heir, at least. Hearing this, she immediately grabbed his collar. 50 gold coins. You owe me. She looked at him and said, don't you intend to repay me with your body? A sunset gradually descended upon the Espencia mansion. Camilla wearily plopped down on a chair and sighed. A servant, seeing this, said worriedly, Madam, your dress will wrinkle if you lie down like that. She replied indifferently, so what? I won't be wearing it again after the funeral. She leaned back in her chair and spoke to the servant. Forget it. Go and give me some wine. I haven't had a drink all week, and a guest will be arriving shortly. Show them to the drawing room when they arrive. The servant bowed and replied, yes, ma'am. A few days prior, the chairman of the Merchants Association had come to offer his condolences. You must be grieving deeply, Countess. He made her a business proposition. It's rare to find a mansion as large as this in the capital. This land is perfect for the large shopping complex we're planning. After the funeral, sell it to us. We'll buy the entire estate, including the Spencer penthouse. He continued, of course, we'll compensate you generously. She raised her fan to cover her mouth and replied, all right, sign the contract right after the funeral. She toyed with the hat in her hand as she spoke. Although it was once the Empire's penthouse, it's now just a local business. Just think, buying it with all the troubles I can't resolve is a perfect deal. Remembering when she sent Ilas Spencer Ballon to the convent, she secretly felt fortunate. It's a good thing I sent that child to the orphanage when she was young. The girl, dragged away by the hand, hadn't given up, shouting no. I want to inherit Mother's mansion. Let go. I don't want to go. Camilla pondered. She should have taken over the inheritance today, but she still hasn't shown up. She must have given up. Looking at the jewelry in her hand, she said triumphantly, those Bazels will never know my true intentions. I'll sell everything and move to the south, where a luxurious life awaits. She sat in the room for a while. The guest she was expecting was long overdue. Why aren't they here yet? As she descended the stairs, Camilla heard the sound of wheels outside. It seems they've arrived. She quickly went outside. Lifting her skirt, Camilla greeted them with a bright smile. I've been waiting. But when she saw two strangers step out of the carriage, she asked in confusion, who are you? The butler and two maids quickly approached. I apologize, but we are not receiving guests today. Ilas took off her hat forcefully and said, I'm here to reclaim what belongs to me. The old maid standing behind Camilla stammered, that hair and eye color. Miss. Ilas crossed her arms and looked at her defiantly. I'm glad you still remember me. Camilla looked her up and down. That child is Ilas. She frowned and then gave Ilas a condescending smile. She scoffed. You grew up in a convent, so you know nothing about the law. You have to be married to inherit property. Camilla laughed triumphantly. You're not married, so you won't get a single thing. Understand. Ilas, unfazed, reached into her pocket. Married. Ilas held up a marriage certificate with her name and Hawkins on it, speaking triumphantly. You're talking about this, aren't you? Then she continued, let me introduce. Camilla frowned. She must have heard about the inheritance law somewhere. That's all it is. With some northern savage. She looked at Ilas with feigned concern. Ilas, I'm quite surprised that someone who's always been in a convent like you got married. When did you meet him? What if he's suspicious? Ilas looked at her coldly and replied, That's none of your concern. My husband, Hakan, is perfectly normal. Camila raised her hand to cover her mouth, laughing smugly at Ilas. His hands and feet, as if he has a problem with his face. She thought, I have to crush that confidence of hers first. Thinking so, she stepped closer and asked, So why are you hiding your face? It's like you're trying to hide something. Ilas looked at Camila. That's... Without letting her finish, Camila quickly challenged, If you're so confident, then show me your face. Ilas lifted her head and said to Luxion Axit, right? He asked her back, really. Then he removed his hooded cloak. Everyone who had been worried about Ilas, including Camila and those behind her, were stunned when they saw his face. As he lowered his hood, he said, With this beauty. Luxion Axit winked and continued, Are you all relieved now? Ilas Spencer Ballon was also a little dazed looking at him. He's really handsome. He put his arm around her shoulder and pulled her close, saying playfully, Hello, is this greeting enough? I can't wait to be alone with you. Ilas blushed at his words and replied softly, Yes, it is. Her hands flushed red with embarrassment. He didn't act like this at the administrative office. When they went to the administrative office to sign the papers, she had asked him, My name is Ilas. What's yours? He replied, Luxion. She looked up at him and asked again, But are you sure you're okay? He replied indifferently, Didn't you say this was an urgent situation? She looked at him hesitantly. No, but getting married for money is a bit. I don't think it's a good idea. Luxion Axit laughed and replied, I don't think the person who told me to repay them with my body should be saying that. Embarrassed, she exclaimed, Ah. He took the paper from her hand. It's fine. You also said we'd get divorced after this mess is resolved. His face remained calm as he looked at the paper. He picked up a pen, looked at her, and smiled. Come on, let's do this. Looking at the paper with his signature, she stared blankly at Luxion Axit. I should have been more careful choosing a husband. She felt a little impulsive. I never thought I'd pick up a husband off the street. And then the seal was stamped on their marriage certificate. Luxion Axit looked at her examining the marriage certificate and asked, Are you going straight to the mansion now? She replied, Yes. Rolling up the marriage certificate, she said, There are a few people I need to see first. Back in the present, she held up the marriage certificate to Camila. No matter what you think, this is a government-approved document. She looked directly at Camila and stated firmly, That means I am now Countess Ballon and the owner of this place. Camila, enraged, nearly roared, Owner of this place. Just then, another carriage procession approached. The man riding at the head of the carriages had a scar. Camila looked overjoyed to see him arrive. He's finally here. Luxion Axit, seeing the approaching men, said, Oh dear. Ilas asked, confused, Do you know them? He looked at the approaching group and replied, A little, but they don't know me. Looking at the two men in the lead, he continued, They're mercenaries. They're a bit scary. The carriages came to a stop. The president of the Merchant Association stepped down. Countess Camila, I'm glad you received such a welcome. Camila smiled and replied, Of course. I've been waiting a long time. Then she feigned a concerned smile and said, But there's a slight problem. The president asked, puzzled, What do you mean a problem? She stepped closer to him and glanced towards Ilas. Expensia Basel, she whispered, There are some uninvited guests here. The men with the president immediately glared at Ilas and Luxion Axit. She looked at them warily and asked, Who are you? The president's servant spoke up, We're here to see Countess Camila. This is the head of the Merchants Association. She immediately introduced herself. I am Ilas Spencer Ballon. From today onwards, I am Countess Ballon. Camila stood to the side, feigning distress. If Ilas had arrived just a little later, our contract would have been signed smoothly. He nodded and said, I understand. If the new countess had arrived a little later. The mercenaries standing around spoke up. What are you talking about? Didn't the countess arrive after the contract was signed? Perhaps she would never have arrived at all. Having said that, the mercenaries drew their swords on the two of them. Camila and the head of the Merchants Association stood behind the mercenaries, who smirked shamelessly at Ilas. Seeing this, Ilas Spencer Ballon became wary. Her eyes flashed with anger as she glared at them. The men with swords approached. Ilas, frightened, stepped back. Luxion Axit stepped behind her, supporting her. He leaned down and whispered in her ear, Ilas, shall I get rid of these guys for you? Hearing this, she asked hesitantly, a little worried, How? Are you planning to take them all on by yourself? Luxion Axit smiled confidently. There's nothing I can't do. Ilas sighed and chuckled softly. I know those are just empty words, but thank you. She thought to herself, I almost asked him for help. He glanced at her suspiciously. You don't want my help. Ilas hesitated, then replied, because this is my own problem. Luxion Axit was surprised into silence. From afar, Camilla yelled, pointing at them and ordering the mercenaries, what are you doing? Seize them. As the men grabbed her, Ilas cried out, wait. She pleaded, please spare him. He has nothing to do with this. A knife was held to Luxion Axit's throat. He looked at her sadly and asked, darling, what do you mean has nothing to do with this? He forced a smile and declared, I'm your husband. Luxion Axit continued, I'm happy you're worried about me, but hearing you say that makes me a little sad. His words caused the group and Ilas to blush with embarrassment. But Ilas was so shocked she froze. She screamed internally, what is wrong with this person? Camilla snapped, stop talking nonsense. She lifted Ilas's chin with her fan and sneered. You fool. Camilla looked into her eyes mockingly. Did you think a child missing for 7 years would be named Countess upon her return? Even after nearly 14 years in the convent, it seems you still haven't learned obedience. Ilas looked up at her with resentment. What kind of deal did you make with that merchant? Camilla waved her hand dismissively. Nothing much. She recounted everything. After losing her husband, the Countess fell into a deep depression. She was too heartbroken to live in the mansion filled with beautiful memories, and she tried to appear calm. Ilas, filled with hatred, gritted her teeth, suppressing her anger. Camilla, remembering the mansion that belonged to Ilas's family, continued, your father wanted to maintain the pride of the Count, so he resisted selling this mansion until the very end. We could have lived in a much grander mansion if we had sold it and moved south. She fanned herself a few times before continuing, but it's time to put an end to this foolishness. You fool, my husband is dead, and you're late. When you open your eyes again. Camilla covered her mouth with a fan and leaned closer to Ilas, threatening, perhaps. You'll meet your parents in the next world. She bowed her head, a smile playing on her lips, her hair obscuring half her face. Ilas's voice rang out. Did you think I wouldn't anticipate this? Camilla asked in astonishment what. She remained bowed, her arms held tightly by the soldiers. Ilas calmly replied, I'm aware of my situation. No one is on my side anymore. Camilla's expression changed, lost in thought. How can she still be so confident? Suddenly, the sound of approaching horses broke the tense atmosphere. A royal carriage appeared. A servant announced the arrival. Camilla cried out in alarm. That crest. It's someone from the imperial palace. The president beside her also broke out in a cold sweat. She quickly waved her hand, ordering, release her. The soldiers responded in unison, yes, ma'am. Camilla fretted, if Ilas exposes this, there will be trouble. The two soldiers released Ilas. Luxion Axit rushed to Ilas's side, anxiously asking, are you all right? She rubbed her wrists, replying yes. The carriage wheels stopped. Marcus slowly stepped down. He looked at them in surprise, asking them, everyone's out here. Camilla and the president trembled, too afraid to speak. They shared the same worried thought. Why had Minister Lection, Marcus, come here? Hearing no reply, he looked around suspiciously. Luxion Axit observed Marcus, surprised. Why is he here? He thought. Marcus stroked his chin and sighed. A larger crowd than I expected. Should I wait? Ilas quickly replied, no, your excellency. They are uninvited guests. I'll have them leave immediately. Thank you for coming. Marcus brushed off his coat, being polite. It is I who should be thanking you. Hearing this, Ilas expressed her intentions. Since you said you would donate all your assets and land to the imperial family, including this mansion. Camilla, standing beside her, was stunned by these words. She exclaimed, what? The fan in her hand clattered to the ground. What do you mean? Camilla demanded. She imagined the mansion, the jewelry, the gold, the artwork. Camilla looked at Ilas suspiciously, but she wants to donate everything, including this mansion, to the imperial family. Earlier, Ilas had been thinking, I've been hesitant all the way to the capital. She bit her finger, pondering, I need a way to protect the Count's mansion from Camilla. A thought suddenly struck her. She thought of the royals. Give everything to someone Camilla wouldn't dare challenge. Marcus bowed his head respectfully. Such a large-scale donation is unprecedented in history. I apologize for the intrusion at this time. Ilas lifted her skirt in a curtsy. Not at all. I'm grateful you made preparations so quickly, despite my abrupt request. She placed a hand over her heart. I entrust everything to you, Minister. Please Please be mindful of the terms I mentioned. Certainly, Marcus replied with a similar gesture of acceptance. I will see to it. Ilas's real decision is to donate everything. However, the condition is that this mansion and garden must be preserved and maintained. Camilla's group was utterly astonished, their jaws dropping in disbelief. Luxion Axit stealthily glanced at Ilas. He softened as he saw her gazing at the falling flowers during the general chaos. She smiled radiantly, happy that she had kept her promise to her mother. Night fell. Luxion Axit leaned against a lamppost. Ilas rushed over and asked, "Oh, I'm sorry. Have you been waiting long?" He smiled and replied, "It's all right. You seem busy. Is it okay to be out like this?" Ilas joked with him, "Even if I'm busy, I still have to repay my benefactor." She took out a bag and handed it to him, instructing, "Here, take this as a thank you for your help. I found these things while checking Camilla's room." He accepted it happily. Inside the bag were some gold coins and jewelry. Ilas reminded him, "Minister, Luxion has turned a blind eye to this. If you want, you can sell them. Of course, you don't have to return the 50 gold coins from before." Luxion Axit looked at the bag of money in surprise, exclaiming, "You're so generous." She retorted, "Generous. If you weren't here today, I wouldn't have been able to do this." Ilas hesitated, then expressed, "Not to mention, I feel like it's still not enough." Then, sincerely, she said, "Thank you." Luxion Axit asked in surprise, "For what?" Ilas remembered the day he whispered to her, "Ilas, I'll help you deal with those bastards." She recalled, "When you said you would help me back then." To dispel the awkward atmosphere, she laughed lightly. "Honestly, Camilla is terrifying. But when you said you'd take care of them yourself, I couldn't help but laugh." What she really wanted to say was, "Thank you for calming me down a little." Ilas smiled brightly and said, "Thank you, truly." Her smile made Luxion Axit speechless. Under the starry sky, he asked with concern, "But what are you going to do now? You've lost everything." Ilas lightly stroked her chin with her index finger, thinking. She forced a smile and reassured him, "Everyone thinks I've lost everything, but it seems like I'm the only one who feels like I've kept them safe." She recalled the image of the mansion bathed in the bright morning sunlight, hoping that the garden and the mansion would be preserved forever. Ilas inquired, "Is there any other way to protect it better than this?" Luxion Axit was a little curious. "Don't you feel any regret? It was all yours, after all." She scratched her head and chuckled sheepishly. It would be a lie to say no. The streetlights shimmered gold in the night. Ilas's voice echoed in the air. "But if I stubbornly held onto it for myself, it wouldn't be as safe as it is now." She laughed again, reassuring Luxion Axit. "Besides, it's not like I've lost everything. I'll take care of myself in my own way." He asked curiously, "So what will you do next?" Ilas stated her decision. I think I'll leave the capital." From afar, a female voice called out, "Countess Ilas, please come back inside." She turned her head towards the voice. Ilas smiled and said goodbye. "I have to go. Be careful going home." She waved and whispered, "Don't forget to meet me at the administrative office at 3 p.m. on Monday. We'll finalize the divorce proceedings." Luxion Axit stood silently, watching her leave. After a while, he returned home. Luxion Axit knocked on the door. A person immediately appeared beside him. They asked, "Have you returned, sir?" He glanced at the person. Coldly, he replied, "I didn't expect you to still be waiting. Have you finished the work at the casino?" The person, wearing a blue cloak, bowed their head and reported, "Of course, sir. All thanks to your highness's assistance. Your subordinate guarantees all evidence has been carefully collected." Luxion Axit remained silent, offering no reply. The person trembled and stammered, "Forgive me, your highness." He appeared irritated and got straight to the point. "Leave? Did you tell my brother I wouldn't be returning?" The person broke out in a cold sweat, unsure how to answer. Luxion Axit pressed, "Did you tell him or not?" Their body trembled. They struggled to recount the events. "I apologize. Because His Majesty ordered strict control over the information I could report to your highness." He rubbed his temples with his fingers. Waving his hand wearily, he replied, "Regardless, I'm safe, and still focused on the task my brother entrusted me with. You are dismissed." The person obeyed, understood. Before leaving, Luxion Axit gave another instruction. "You don't need to stand guard around here. Don't do anything unnecessary. I will certainly report everything to my brother tomorrow. Now go." The person hesitated, but his gaze turned sharp and his voice hardened. "That's an order." The person hurried away, their body still trembling with fear. Luxion Axit took off his shoes, which lay scattered on the floor. He collapsed onto the bed to rest. He sighed, "What a long day. I even got married." Luxion Axit picked up the marriage certificate and looked at it, evaluating a marriage recognized by a single piece of paper. How ridiculous. Resting his head on his hand, he thought about the name Ilas Spencer Ballon. I never thought things would turn out this way. Luxion Axit recalled the past when he appeared at the ball. He had thought, I need to stall for time to check the upper floor. I should divert the guard's attention. Pulling his cloak's hood over his head, he approached a young woman. He started a conversation. Haven't we met before, my lady? She exclaimed in surprise. Oh my. Blushing girls surrounded him. Luxion Axit approached another young woman and whispered, Could I borrow some money, my lady? He winked at her, promising, I'll return it to you later. The guard chased after Luxion Axit, shouting, Hey, what are you doing? He smiled at them, thinking to himself, Time to run, I suppose. He jumped through the window and escaped, leaving behind the guard's shouts of, Stop him. He planned, if I don't want to be suspected. Upon landing, Luxion Axit came face to face with Ilas Spencer Ballon huddled in a corner. That was a strange encounter. She had angrily grabbed his collar and questioned him. Luxion Axit pondered, how could it have happened right there? Remembering her expression, he mused, and the image of Ilas Spencer Ballon smiling, with her blonde hair, appeared in his mind. He sighed, that truly was radiant blonde hair. Luxion Axit lay on the bed, resting his head on his hand, closing his eyes, and imagining it must be very soft to the touch. Suddenly, his face darkened as he realized he was being foolish. He turned onto his side, convincing himself, I need to return to where I belong. His Majesty will surely keep me in the capital for now. Luxion Axit looked at the empty space beside him on the bed. He silently wished. He would be very upset if he knew I got married. Well, it's just a sham. If it were real, Ilas Spencer Ballon would be lying next to me right now. Because tonight is our wedding night. Luxion Axit's face darkened, and he broke out in a cold sweat at the absurd thought. Luxion Axit sat bolt upright, yelling, What am I even thinking? Looking out, he saw it was late. He told himself to take a bath and go to bed. Ilas Spencer Ballon stood on the terrace, gazing at the night sky. She leaned against the balcony railing, pondering recent events. She couldn't believe she'd gotten married. She couldn't believe she was getting divorced so quickly. She was alone again. The word again startled her. Ilas Spencer Ballon smiled faintly, clutching her pendant for comfort. She'd always been alone, ever since being abandoned at the convent. She recalled her mother placing the necklace around her neck, saying, When you feel lost, wear this necklace and look into the garden. Then you will receive help. Ilas Spencer Ballon closed her eyes and whispered, as if speaking to her mother, I haven't faced any real difficulties, mother. But what should I do now? The jewel on the pendant suddenly shone brightly. She gasped, watching it float in midair. Huh, she uttered. The next morning, the ancient mansion radiated a magical beauty. Luxion Axit sat in the living room, muttering, He's been gone for a while now. He stood up, thinking, Should I go to the flower garden? Before he could leave, Luxion Axit paused. No, it wouldn't be appropriate. He gazed at the portrait of the Aegisian woman hanging on the wall, studying her features. He wondered if he truly resembled her. Luxion Axit was lost in memories. At the dining table as a child, he often asked his father what did mother look like. I've never met her. His father would hesitate, then reply, Your mother. She was a wonderful woman. He'd sketch her portrait and praise her radiant presence. Luxion Axit's eyes sparkled as he looked at his mother in the painting. Thinking of the portrait, he remembered his father's happy expression while painting it. I used to tease him about that smile when I was little. One day, a bouquet of lilies appeared in their home. Curious, Luxion Axit asked, Father, why did you buy these flowers? His father didn't answer, just sat holding his head in silence. Then he announced, The queen has passed away. Luxion Axit was stunned. His father asked to be left alone. Luxion Axit glanced at his mother's portrait placed beside the lilies. His father buried his face in his hands and revealed the truth. Luxion Axit, your mother was the former queen of Aegisia. After dealing with the rebels, she came to me and gave birth to you. We lived together in secret. Luxion Axit calmly replied, Is that so? His father took a necklace from his pocket. Your mother said you should wear this when you need help. Luxion Axit took the necklace with both hands. His father asked anxiously, You know you can't go there, right? But you should keep it. Soon after, war broke out. Haakon was gravely wounded while evacuating civilians from the battlefield. Watching him collapse, Luxion Axit cried out, Father. Haakon, with his last strength, told his son, From now on, you are Haakon, the mercenary king. Luxion Axit clutched his father's battle helmet, his face etched with grief. From then on, Luxion Axit impersonated his father, commanding the mercenaries and evacuating villagers. The people cheered, celebrating Haakon's victories. He wore his father's armor. Only he and his father's colleagues knew the truth about Haakon's death. He thought it would be best to disappear quietly after the war. The door opened. A prince appeared, calling for Luxion Axit. This person was Luxion Axit's brother. He approached, bowing his head respectfully. "Your Majesty." His brother waved his hand dismissively. "I told you, you don't need to greet me so formally." Luxion Axit chuckled. "Still, I can't just wave when I see the Emperor." In the final battle, with the combined might of the Imperial Army and the Suan people, the Emperor was there too. At first, the Imperial Army seemed to have the upper hand. My brother joined the battle, his sword dripping with blood. He was terrified because the Emperor's forces were surrounded when the enemy ambushed from the ravine. Immediately, the soldiers announced that the Emperor had been completely encircled by the Suan. I joined the fight then. I predicted he would die if anything went wrong. I decided to charge into the enemy ranks and rescue my brother, ignoring the warnings about the danger. An enemy slashed at my shoulder, making me cry out in pain. I quickly drew my sword and eliminated the attacker. Blood stained the ground crimson. The Emperor lay unconscious on the ground. Panicked, I called out, trying to wake him. "Your Majesty." The Emperor smiled reassuringly. As I helped him up, my brother said, "So, you're Luxion Axit." Back in the present, Luxion Axit sipped his tea, a worried expression on his face. Even though my bandages had fallen off, it's surprising he recognized me. The Emperor looked at him intently. "What are you thinking about?" Luxion Axit forced a smile. I was just remembering the first time I met your Majesty on the battlefield. You recognized me instantly." He feigned nonchalance, chuckling. "It's funny to think about it. You recognized me before you even saw the necklace." The Emperor confessed, "That's because the former queen often told me about you. When you were little, Agizia would tell me stories. As soon as you were born, Mother returned to the palace. She didn't know what you looked like. She looked at me with innocent eyes and said, 'But I think he'll look more like his father.' I'm proud of my own abilities. I would have recognized you even if I hadn't heard stories about you. Should I say it's because royal intuition is quite good. That includes animal instincts too." He asked cheerfully, "You also saw me instantly in all the chaos, didn't you?" The Emperor sighed dejectedly. "But you still called me your Majesty." Luxion Axit thought to himself, "But I never intended to call you brother." A younger brother had appeared before the Emperor, who still had no heir. This was a seed of disaster. Seeing the chairman's gloomy expression behind the Emperor, he silently calculated, "I will be the most likely rebel for anyone who knows the truth. You don't need to be so cautious." Luxion Axit reached for his teacup. The Emperor praised him. "I hear you've been a great help with the casino matters. Thanks to you, things are becoming much easier." But then he brought up the subject of marriage. Hearing this, Luxion Axit choked on his tea. He gave a warm smile, but inwardly he screamed, "I'm not ready for this." Luxion Axit rubbed the back of his neck, masking his embarrassment. He feigned a laugh. "Your Majesty needn't worry about my marriage." The Emperor looked displeased. "How can I not worry? You're 26 years old. You're 6 years past the marriageable age." Luxion Axit thought despondently. Here we go again. The Emperor placed a large stack of books on the table. Therefore, he declared, "I've decided to arrange meetings for you with every eligible woman of marriageable age. It's going to be very busy. Be prepared." Looking at the thick books on the table, Luxion Axit felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. The Emperor took a sip of tea and smiled cheerfully. "I'll arrange the appointments for you starting tomorrow," he instructed, "so you should stay in the castle from now on." Luxion Axit exclaimed in alarm, "Brother." The Emperor, surprised, stammered, "Brother. Did you just call me brother?" Luxion Axit placed a hand on his chest, feigning emotion. "Actually, your Majesty, I already have someone." The Emperor, astonished, asked incredulously, "Impossible. You've never mentioned this before." Luxion Axit replied, "If I had mentioned it, your Majesty would have surely demanded I bring her here immediately." The Emperor retorted, "Of course." Clasping his hands together, Luxion Axit hesitated. "That's why I didn't say anything." He explained his reasoning. "She would be under immense pressure if she had to suddenly meet your Majesty. As I've mentioned, when the Northerners choose a partner, they don't pay attention to anyone else until they depart. So I hope you understand. I had no other choice." Secretly, however, he felt a surge of pride, thinking, "I'm a pretty good liar." The Emperor, hearing this, conceded, "I understand." Luxion Axit breathed a sigh of relief. His brother then inquired, "But what's her name?" Caught off guard, he stammered, "Huh?" The Emperor disapproving, argued, "You must at least tell me her name. I can't just call her your someone." Luxion Axit, sweating nervously, stalled. His brother's gaze sharpened, staring intently. Luxion Axit chuckled nervously, trying to appease him. "Well, her name is Ilas Spencer-Ballon." The Emperor continued his questioning. "What is Ilas Spencer-Ballon like?" He stammered, she's energetic and wonderful." His brother pressed further. "What color is her hair?" Luxion Axit, panicking, blurted out, "Blonde." The Emperor continued his barrage of questions. "What color are her eyes? How did you meet her? What's her favorite food?" Overwhelmed, Luxion Axit couldn't answer. His brother closed his eyes, sighing. "Fine." He stood up and declared, "She'll surely be under a lot of pressure if summoned to the Imperial Palace, so I will personally go and meet her." Luxion Axit, horrified, realized he had to get out of there. The clock tower chimed, marking 2:30 p.m. Ilas Spencer-Ballon walked along the road towards the fountain. Seeing no one, she muttered, "Am I too early?" Gazing at the mansion before her, she mused, "It's a little unsettling seeing the mansion no longer mine, but I've finished all the necessary arrangements for the donation." Ilas Spencer-Ballon bowed her head, wishing someone had accompanied her. "It would have been so much better if someone were with me. I can't let the divorce be revealed. I can't trust anyone in this mansion." She recalled her time in the mansion. A tea tray was set on the table. She poured herself a cup, took a sip, and coughed. She startled the servants in the mansion, who quickly left. She stood there, holding the teacup motionless. Sighing sadly, she realized, "I can't even drink water comfortably in this mansion anymore." Ilas Spencer-Ballon poured the remaining tea into a nearby potted plant and left. Now sitting on a bench by the road, lost in thought, she considered it would be better to just postpone the divorce until things settle down. But Luxion Axit would never agree to that. The divorce had to happen quickly. A dark figure suddenly appeared. The person approached and lifted her hair. In their hand, they held a sharp needle. She felt it from behind. Ilas screamed in pain. She touched her hair and cried out in fear. This hurts. What is this? I'm losing consciousness." Ilas gradually lost consciousness. The person embraced her body and asked solicitously, "Are you all right? You don't look well. Lean on me." She hazily tried to recall the voice. Ilas looked up at the person. It was Camila. She smiled wickedly. "Thank goodness you're awake, Ilas." Camila's smile deepened. "We have a lot to talk about. They sent this." A foot and 2 fingers were delivered. Ilas was terrified. She realized she couldn't speak. "Am I going to die like this?" She thought of Luxion Axit. "If I die right after getting married, suspicion will fall on him." After dealing with Ilas, Camila met with 3 mysterious people in an alley to discuss. Was the drug too strong? She's not even waking up. Returning to Ilas, Camila grabbed her chin, looked at her with a cruel expression, and ordered tea. "She'll wake up if we cut off her hands and feet, won't she?" "Do it." A voice from afar rang out. "Let her go," startling Camila. Luxion Axit appeared with a displeased expression, looking at the people holding Ilas. He asked, "What are you doing with my wife?" Camila yelled, "Who the hell are you?" She laughed loudly and threatened, "You're next. But I didn't expect you to come here yourself. Are you planning to imitate those mercenaries with your bare hands?" She waved her hand, giving the order, "First." Camila pointed at Luxion Axit and commanded, "Get him." A tall, burly soldier charged at Luxion Axit with an axe. Instantly, he received a punch to the cheek. "Son of a bitch." He cursed in pain. The soldier collapsed on the ground. Camila and the 2 remaining accomplices gasped in shock. Luxion Axit said coldly, "Imitate mercenaries." He stepped forward confidently. "That's what I do best." Night fell. The bright moon illuminated the mansion. Then Ilas murmured in her sleep, "CA?" She startled awake and yelled, "Camila." Regaining her composure, Ilas looked around, confused. Where am I?" Luxion Axit appeared at the door and asked, "Are you awake?" Surprised to see him, she quickly asked Luxion Axit, "What are you doing here?" He brought a tray of food to her bedside. When he didn't answer, she hurriedly asked, "And where's this place?" Luxion Axit smiled gently and advised, "Eat something first." He gestured to the food tray and explained, "Because the antidote is so strong, he said not to let your stomach be empty. The doctor said you might feel dizzy until the poison completely wears off." Ilas rubbed her head and sighed. "Now that you mention it, I do feel a little dizzy." But suddenly she remembered Camila. She quickly asked, "What happened to Camila? What about those mercenaries?" Startled by her tone, he replied, "This is the inn where I'm staying." He recounted the events. When I arrive at the place we agreed to meet, I saw you being dragged into an alley. That's why. When I got there, the soldiers were already lying on the ground. Camila was huddled in fear, begging, "Please, spare me." Luxion Axit's expression turned cold and menacing. "Please," she pleaded. Suddenly, an ear-piercing scream echoed. Blood splattered everywhere. "Deal with her," Luxion Axit ordered his guard. "You're dismissed." Carrying Ilas in his arms, he gave the order to clean up the mess. "Also, where's the nearest hospital?" he asked. He continued to fill Ilas in on what happened while she was unconscious. "When I saw you being dragged into the alley," he fabricated a story. "I alerted the guards," he explained. "They arrived and rescued you." Camila and her mercenaries were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping. Did Camila and the others just let themselves be arrested? Ilas asked. Luxion Axit waved his hand dismissively and laughed, concealing the truth. It seems there was some sort of disagreement among them. In the ensuing chaos, they fought each other unconscious. It was quite a scene. He added, "That woman, Camila, was also poisoned by her own mercenaries and lost consciousness." Ilas asked again, just to be sure, "So that's what happened." She softly thanked him. He smiled happily and replied, "It's my duty to my wife." He pushed a tray of food closer to her. "The food's getting cold. Eat up," he reminded her. Ilas looked at the steaming food, took a spoon, and savored a bite. "Delicious." "Thank you, Luxion," she exclaimed. A short while later, the food tray was empty. Seeing that she had finished eating, he kindly inquired, "So, what are you going to do now?" She replied, surprised, Camila is in jail, but it seems my relatives are causing commotion." She recalled the people outside the mansion gates, shouting their protests. "We refuse to donate. I demand to see Ilas. I am her cousin's son. Under imperial law, citizens can reclaim donations made to the empire within a year." "Right," Ilas said, seeking Luxion Axit's opinion. "I know I should leave the capital now, shouldn't I?" He then asked, "Do you have money for the journey?" She waved her hand shyly and replied, "I have enough. At least for now." Ilas explained, "People from the Ministry of Finance hid some assets before the mansion was inspected. They turned a blind eye, to a certain extent, and gave them to me." Clutching her pendant, Ilas smiled, thinking to herself, besides that. She recalled the night the pendant glowed in the darkness. She had cried out in alarm, "Oh. Then, Ilas suddenly noticed the light. The painting hanging on the wall was also glowing. Approaching the painting, she discovered, so there's a hidden compartment here. She pressed a small tile on the painting. Immediately, the frame opened, revealing a hidden letter. Astonished, she exclaimed, "This is..." Taking out the paper and reading it, she realized it contained the combination to a safe and the locations of 5 emergency funds. Ilas remembered her mother's words from long ago. "Ilas, my daughter, you should find and use these in case of emergency." She imagined herself living comfortably, freely spending the money. "With 100,000 gold pieces, I can buy a beautiful house in a big city and still have plenty left over even if I live leisurely for the rest of my life." She smiled with delight at the thought. "Just hold on for a year," she mused. Luxion Axit asked her, "So, where are you planning to go?" Ilas replied, "I'm not sure yet." Rubbing her chin thoughtfully, she expressed, "I want to go as far away as possible. I can't think of anywhere specific right now." Luxion Axit then suggested, "In that case, how about coming to my home?" Having said that, he suddenly realized something was wrong. What did I just say? Luxion Axit awkwardly tried to hide his embarrassment, because she said she wanted to go far away. He rubbed his head and chuckled foolishly. That description makes it sound like a pretty wonderful and peaceful place. He secretly thought, she'll refuse, right? But Ilas remained silent for a moment, not answering. Then, she smiled brightly and asked, "Where is your home?" He was completely shocked by her sudden change in attitude. Ilas clasped her hands together excitedly. "What's your home like?" she asked expectantly. Luxion Axit stammered, surprised. My home is in a small village in the north. There are about 100 households there." She moved closer to him, incredibly enthusiastic. "Wow, that sounds wonderful." But inwardly, Ilas thought, because of this small village, it's the perfect place for me to hide from those relatives. Luxion Axit continued, "And the soil is fertile so you could grow crops there. When the rice ripens, the fields turn a beautiful golden color. The village children often fish in the river." He reminisced, blushing and smiling with happiness. Seeing his smile, she smiled to herself, thinking he really loves that place. She unconsciously brought a hand to her mouth, lost in thought. The more he talks, the more I think it's the perfect place for me. Because the northern region was annexed by the empire a few years ago, the nobles won't go there. It's still undeveloped land. But her gaze suddenly dropped, and she became pensive. Ilas looked at Luxion Axit and asked, "Why are you being so kind to me?" He looked back at her, slightly surprised. She considered her words. "Considering the benefits of our marriage, you could have just left me at the clinic, but you're still taking care of me. You even told me about where you live, which sounds like a good place to hide." Luxion Axit shifted uncomfortably, sweating and laughing nervously. Ilas suddenly gripped the blanket in alarm. Do you tell every girl this? Are there about 100 girls there?" He jumped, exclaiming, "No. Honestly, I wanted to ask you something." He sighed. She responded curiously, "What is it?" He hesitated, looking away shyly. "Ilas," he began, would you be my life mate?" Luxion Axit blushed, looking at her as he spoke the words. Life mate is what northerners call their wives, Ilas recalled from a book. For them, marriage is a sacred bond witnessed by God. Once they become life mates, they are inseparable. Even if their life mate dies, they will live the rest of their lives alone. The information surprised and excited her. Her eyes widened as she drew her own conclusions. Is that why many people just date? And some even have children with their lovers without becoming life mates. But Luxion Axit panicked and shouted, "Wait. Stop," interrupting her thoughts. He quickly stood up, flustered, and explained, "I asked you to pretend to be my life mate, not actually be it." Ilas responded, confused. What? After a moment, as he tried to explain further, she began to understand. Folding her arms, she said flatly, "So, you don't actually want to get married, but your half-brothers, those nobles, are pressuring you to. So you lied and said you already have someone." Each word felt like a jab. Luxion Axit closed his eyes in embarrassment, unable to respond. She continued, "And you used me as an example, even describing my appearance." He felt like he was being pierced by 1,000 arrows, each word a blow, causing him to shrink back in shame. Luxion, shrinking figuratively to the size of a fist, hunched over in his chair, mumbled in embarrassment, "Yes, I apologize. My brother is incredibly persistent. He's the type to investigate everything about you. I can't just explain it away as a misunderstanding." He tried to elaborate further. Ilas calmly replied, "All right, so that means we'll have to get married. For a while, right?" Luxion panicked. "Is that truly all right?" She cheerfully responded, "You saved my life, so this is nothing in comparison." She thought to herself, "This way, no one will suspect it's a marriage of convenience." She smiled gently, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Secondly, Ilas thought, "I also need to maintain this relationship for a few more years." Extending her hand for a handshake that sealed their agreement, she said, "Happy cooperation." The next day, when the sun was high in the sky, Ilas thought, "Since the emperor gave us the marriage certificate and a letter, I suppose he won't come see me, right?" Suddenly, she called out Luxion. Luxion startled awake at the sound of his name. He looked around in confusion and muttered, "Huh?" Ilas asked with concern, "Are you all right?" He responded, perplexed, "Huh? What's wrong?" She quickly said, "This is too much for you, isn't it? I'll pay for the carriage. That's what you're worried about, right?" Luxion scratched his head and replied, "I'm fine. I was just thinking about the itinerary for this trip." He smiled sheepishly, thinking to himself, "I guess the image of me as a greedy, impoverished man has been etched on her face since we first met. She'll faint when she finds out the surrounding area is all my family's property. I'm tired of the role of a greedy, warmongering king. This is a place where I can live a normal life with my partner. But because the land here is fertile, it comes with enormous taxes." Luxion sighed inwardly, lamenting the excessive wealth bestowed upon him by the emperor. He recalled the emperor's cheerful laughter as he gestured towards a mountain of gold, silver, and jewels, saying, "You're my benefactor, after all." He continued thinking, "Well, there's no need to explain too much." He looked at Ilas, a pang of guilt in his heart. "It's been a while since someone worried about me." After delivering them to their destination, the coachman bid them farewell and departed. But as soon as the carriage stopped, Ilas dashed into the grounds like a lightning bolt. Luxion quickly followed, worriedly retrieving his water bottle. "Are you all right? Here's some water." She coughed, breathless, and exclaimed, "I'm practically broke." He asked, puzzled, "You were enjoying the scenery so much at first," and solicitously offered her the water. She replied wearily, "That's because I'm always stressed when I'm in the capital. It was the first time I could relax and enjoy the view from a carriage like that. Thanks to you, I could finally enjoy the scenery this time." She turned to him with a bright smile and said, "Thank you." Then she returned the water bottle, saying, "Here." Luxion blushed and lowered his head, murmuring, Suddenly, a man appeared, grinning broadly. "Welcome to the Traveler's Inn." Ilas said, "We'll be staying for one day. Please prepare dinner and breakfast for us." The innkeeper replied, "We'll prepare a room for you." She immediately responded, "No." Just as she spoke, Luxion slung an arm around her shoulders, interjecting with a laugh, "Please give us one room." The innkeeper said, "Oh, my apologies. Are you two a couple?" Ilas's eyes widened in surprise as she called out Luxion's name. He said, "We're newlyweds, so we don't want to be apart for even an hour. You understand. Now, if you'll excuse us, we'll go up because my wife is tired." The innkeeper enthusiastically replied, "You're both in the honeymoon phase. You can order late-night snacks, too." He quickly ushered her up the stairs, excitedly saying, "Come on, dear." A very large bed, decorated with a heart made of rose petals. Extremely romantic. But in contrast to that were two gloomy faces, clearly showing displeasure. Ilas nervously edged towards a candle. She firmly grasped the candlestick in her hand. Pointing the burning candle forward, her face flushed, she shouted, "Everyone's right. Men are all wolves." Luxion, frightened, recoiled, yelling, "Wait, I can explain." Luxion pointed, saying the man sitting in the lobby. He has a spider tattoo on his arm. But Ilas, still gripping the candlestick, asked in surprise, "A spider tattoo?" He replied nervously, "It's the tattoo of a notorious thief. So, if we sleep separately, he might break into your room." They spoke in a tense situation. Luxion held up his hands defensively, while Ilas kept the burning candle pointed towards him warily. She then placed the candle back down. Watching her walk away, he worried silently, thinking, "Did I scare her? Those bastards have been trying to kill every mercenary they come across or rob their rooms." But Luxion hung his head in disappointment. He thought, "I still wish they didn't hate mercenaries." There's a lot of respect for the name Haken, the king of mercenaries. But the name Luxion Axit is different. The taunts he remembered were slave to money, the empire's sinner, northern barbarian trash. He clenched his fists, thinking, "Those words don't bother me, but sometimes they do irritate me." Suddenly, Ilas asked, "Is there anything else besides a spider tattoo?" Luxion looked up surprised. She asked excitedly, "Mercenary tattoos. I saw dragon, wolf, and lion tattoos on the way here." Ilas, full of anticipation, asked, "I bet those tattoos have other meanings, right?" Seeing her enthusiastic questioning, Luxion was too stunned to answer. He asked worriedly, "Ilas, aren't you afraid of those mercenaries?" She hesitated slightly, saying, "Well, I'm a little scared." "But you're a mercenary too, aren't you?" Thanks to the royal knights and the mercenaries, the empire won the war. Luxion was taken aback by her words. She smiled brightly, saying, "Why would you think I'd be afraid?" He blushed, speechless. Ilas continued, "So what about the other tattoos? Tell me." He replied, "I'll tell you about the famous ones first." Later, golden strands of hair lay on the pillow. Luxion whispered, "Ilas, are you asleep?" By then, Ilas had drifted off to sleep in comfortable clothes, hugging a pillow tightly. Luxion muttered, flustered, "She really has no guard up at all. Where am I supposed to sleep now?" He recalled how earlier she had insisted, pointing at the bed with a rose petal heart, saying he couldn't sleep in such a shabby place and should sleep on the bed. He sighed, saying to himself, "That's what she said." He looked awkwardly at the small sofa in the distance, saying, "I can't sleep on the sofa." Then, silent, Luxion resigned himself to lying back down on the bed, some distance away. Ilas reassured herself, thinking, sleeping apart is fine, right? This feels like a wedding night. He closed his eyes, afraid of his own ridiculous thoughts. But just then Ilas started to roll. She rolled right into his arms, causing a startled Luxion to open his eyes. Blushing furiously, he pushed her away, yelling, "Ilas." But she remained fast asleep, unresponsive. He stared at her sleeping face, then, covering his chest with both hands, thought embarrassedly, "Does Ilas want to take advantage of me?" But then, she sadly murmured, "Mother." He sat silently, staring at her. He lay back down, resignedly offering his arm as a pillow, his other hand gently pulling the blanket over her. Blushing, he thought to himself, "We should sleep separately starting tomorrow. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep at all." In her dream, Ilas was enjoying pastries with her mother. Her mother, holding a teacup, said with a smile, Ilas, all men are wolves. Her mother sipped her tea, and Ilas thought, is that so, mother? But Luxion isn't a wolf. Her mother sadly advised, that's how it is. Ilas, be careful when choosing a husband. Ilas thought, but mother, She started to open her eyes, saying, I'm already married. She then abruptly sat up, exclaiming to herself, when did I fall asleep? She looked over to the side, fearfully, thinking, it seems Luxion slept here too. Suddenly, Ilas sniffed her hand, thinking puzzledly, what's this smell? Body wash and body odor. I didn't bathe yesterday, so it can't be mine. It's not the blanket smell either. As if realizing something, her eyes widened. Then, reassuring herself, she said, this isn't the time to think about this. I need to bathe. After bathing, Ilas was contentedly drying her hair. Then, she looked up stunned. She exclaimed in surprise, Luxion. He was standing there, blushing and speechless, holding a tray of food and drinks. He turned his head away, embarrassed, saying, I saw you were still sleeping, so I brought you breakfast. Looking at the tray of simple but appealing food, she said happily, it looks delicious. Spreading butter on her bread, she asked, what are you doing today? Luxion, pouring milk, replied, the coins you gave me are all royal gold coins, so I'm going to the pawn shop to exchange them. The North still has many places that use their own currency. Ilas, eating, said excitedly, oh, I've heard about it, the drachma. That's interesting. Luxion carefully placed the glass of milk on the table for her. Thinking happily, I knew she'd be interested. She asked, by the way, Luxion, what's wrong? He replied, Ilas, I'm a little curious. When we return to your territory, where will I stay? She thought to herself, I wonder if I can stay at Luxion's house. He calmly held his glass, saying, I'll introduce you as the daughter of my benefactor. You're traveling with me because you have nowhere else to go after your parents passed away. Yes, Ilas replied. That will work. Luxion continued, as for housing, I'll fix up some of the houses that have been abandoned since the war. She replied a little disappointedly. Yes, thinking sadly to herself. Luxion said he only needed the marriage certificate, so I guess he won't need to pretend anymore when we get back to the village. But her fork missed a tomato slice, which bounced to another spot. Then Ilas wondered to herself, can't we live together? An image of closely packed houses appeared in her mind. Luxion and Ilas entered another building. Ilas took off her hat and looked around curiously. A man reading a book looked up and greeted them, asking, hello, what currency would you like to exchange and how much? As per our policy, we do not accept items suspected of being stolen. Luxion placed a bag of gold coins on the table. I want to exchange 10 royal gold coins for northern currency. The man took the bag, examined the coins, and said, currently, 1 royal gold coin is equivalent to 16 Highlandian coins. These are genuine. What do you think? He frowned, annoyed. Do we look like vagrants to him? It's usually worth 20. Luxion glanced at Ilas, who was deep in thought. Ilas looks quite tired. If I wanted to go to another pawn shop, well, we aren't short on travel money. He was about to speak when Ilas suddenly grabbed his hands. She looked as if she was about to cry. My love, she said, do we really have to exchange mother's keepsakes? He was stunned. My love, mother's keepsakes. What does she mean? Meanwhile, Ilas looked at him with teary eyes. Before he could understand, she winked and gestured with her hand. Play along. Luxion understood. Ilas continued, her voice choked with fake sobs. Even if we are destitute, selling mother's keepsakes, the thing she worked her whole life to save. The shopkeeper, holding the bag of coins, asked in alarm, keepsakes. What do you mean? These coins, she replied, because we need money to travel all the way north to start a business. We have to sell my mother's keepsakes. Dabbing her eyes, Ilas winked mischievously. Not a lie at all. The shopkeeper said thoughtfully, I didn't know there was such a story behind these coins. I'll exchange them at 20 Highlandian coins each. Ilas said sincerely, thank you so much. Now that the money has been exchanged, I'll buy a white daffodil outside and pray. It was my mother's favorite flower. As if struck by lightning, the shopkeeper was moved to tears. Oh, what a touching story. He placed 2 gold coins on the table. My late mother also loved white daffodils. This must be a special connection. So, I'll exchange even more for you. And since it's a keepsake, I'll return 2 gold coins. A while later, they left the shop. Luxion had a lot to say, but held back. He asked, bewildered, how did you do that? I can't believe you got 200 Highlandian coins from 8 gold coins. Ilas replied confidently, that old man initially gave us a ridiculous price. Right, he said, surprised. How did you know? She recalled the moment, because when he said 16 Highlandian coins, you were silent for a moment. I thought you would bargain with him, but you didn't. So I decided I had to do something. With confidence, she explained about the keepsake story. I saw a pot of daffodils inside the shop, along with a letter addressed to Mother that he had taken. So it suddenly occurred to me, maybe he's a son, thinking a lot about his mother. If his mother were still alive, he'd definitely send it to her instead of leaving it on the counter, right? Yes, Ilas said excitedly. That's why I told the shopkeeper that tear-jerking story. Luxion, very surprised, asked her back, you came up with that in such a short time. She replied, just do it and don't think about it. That's what my mother taught me. Lost in thought, she proudly said to herself, Ilas, the hardest words in this world are those uttered by merchants, claiming they're making a loss. Tossing a gold coin in her hand, she affirmed, to haggle, you have to put your whole heart and soul into it. Luxion, extremely impressed, clapped continuously. Hello, she turned and asked, all right, now that we've exchanged the money, where next? He replied, let's go buy some necessities. She asked curiously, some necessities? Moments later, with fashionable bags and shoes neatly arranged, Ilas, overwhelmed, tried on an elegant long blue dress with a wide-brimmed hat. She took the hat off and asked hesitantly, did I buy too much? Luxion, holding her purchases, replied casually, what are you talking about? You said it was your only dress. He hurriedly handed her the dress, saying, the north is much colder than where you're used to. We need to buy a few more long outfits. Wow, they look great on you. Hearing this, Ilas blushed and smiled shyly. She said, if I had come here alone, I probably wouldn't have been able to choose clothes so well. Thank you, Luxion. Both blushed, looking at each other. Then she quickly changed the subject to the large backpacks below, saying, you bought too much. He picked up a backpack and said, you should bring this much. I'll carry them. She replied, but they're heavy. He slung them over his shoulder, smiling casually and replying, this is nothing. She thought to herself, surprised, I thought he was just a familiar mercenary, but he seems pretty strong. They strolled around the market together. Ilas's eyes sparkled. She smiled brightly, letting out a happy sound. This is the first time I've seen so many different kinds of seeds. She thought to herself, I secretly grew vegetables in the garden by the kitchen back in the capital, but I was always disappointed that I couldn't grow more varieties. Even though I have a whole cookbook, the number of dishes I can make is very limited. She picked up a seedling and said, that's right. I'll grow my own vegetable garden after I get to my homeland. I just need to think about getting far away from the capital and living in seclusion. And I won't be confined or controlled by anyone anymore. In a prosperous and safe village, I can do whatever I want. She clenched her fists in determination. She was incredibly excited about her new life. One late afternoon, Ilas and Luxion strolled through the forest, chatting as they followed the path. Beyond that hill is my homeland, Eldon. You mean paradise in the ancient language. What a beautiful name. Ilas smiled brightly and said, Luxion, tell me more about your homeland. He replied, again, you've heard it all the way here. She laced her fingers together cheerfully and said, I'm just so excited to get to where I'm going to live. She walked ahead of him, thinking I shouldn't get too attached to a place I'll only be staying for a year. But there are still so many things I want to do. Choose a clean house with a garden. Prepare a lunch with fresh vegetables, ripe fruit, and freshly baked bread. And for dinner, I'll eat and chat with everyone at the village restaurant. Ilas walked, thinking now I could do everything. She excitedly walked forward in this wonderful town, just as Luxion had described. Suddenly, she stopped. Before her eyes lay a scene of desolation, unlike anything she had imagined. The village was now nothing but ruins. Welcome to the luxurious and peaceful village of Eldon. Luxion bowed, giving a wry smile. Seems better than I thought. Ilas, stunned, replied, better. The houses were dilapidated and in ruins. I thought there wouldn't even be a road, she said, because this village was wiped out by the war. Ilas looked at him in bewilderment. So, Luxion, you already knew about the state of the village. He replied, yeah, I guess I messed up. Luxion looked sadly at her face. I was happy that Ilas was excited about her homeland. I only told her the good things from my childhood. He reminisced. I've never told anyone about my hometown because I'm living under the identity of Hakan. He felt a pang of guilt. I got carried away and acted like a fool. I was way too excited. The image of Ilas smiling brightly came to mind. She must have been dreaming a lot. She wouldn't want to live in a place like this, not even for a short rest. If she wants to leave, I'll find a new place. I'm sorry, she said, her head bowed. He looked at her, a little surprised. Huh. Ilas continued, this is Lukshan's home. You must be even sadder seeing it like this. She thought sadly, I can't complain about my shattered dreams to someone whose entire village has been destroyed. Luxion must be devastated. He smiled reassuringly. That's not something Ilas needs to apologize for. It's the fault of those who set the fire, but Luxion placed a hand on her shoulder. Forget about it. Let's go home. You should get some rest. The area behind Lukshan's ears flushed slightly. The other territories of the Empire should feel lucky that only the North was attacked. I don't care about the damage to the North. I don't expect an apology. Luxion led Ilas to a house. She looked up in astonishment. This is our house, he said. With a little fixing up, it'll be back in shape, she replied. Suddenly, a loud shout echoed. Hey! Kian appeared abruptly. Who are you, and what are you doing in someone else's house? Kian asked in surprise. Oh my, who is this poor thing? Luxion quickly approached him and punched him in the stomach. Luxion warned, call me captain again, and I'll kill you. Kian said, okay, Luxion. He glanced at Ilas. Who is she? Is she someone we're not supposed to know about? He turned to Ilas and replied, she's the daughter of an acquaintance. I brought her here because she has nowhere else to go. Kian said with a hint of mockery, really? Luxion responded, bewildered. What's with that look? You haven't teased me yet. It's just that I've never brought a girl home before. But is she from the Empire? Your type, huh? Go talk to your comrades. From now on, I'm Luxion, so don't call me captain, understand? Kian scratched his head. But you can't hide it forever. Kian looked at Ilas, who was standing there innocently waiting. She'll be leaving here in a year. He looked at her and said, maybe even sooner. He pushed him, telling him to stop babbling and get lost. He replied, yes, yes. Kian left, but glanced back. She'll be leaving in a year. He suddenly grinned. I don't think so. Ilas asked curiously, hello, is it your friend? Luxion replied, yeah, that's Kian, an old friend. He said hurriedly, I apologize, but I'll be back in a moment. I don't know what nonsense he might say to others. She smiled and replied, all right, go ahead. Before leaving, he said, why don't you go inside and take a look around? Inside the house, Kian unexpectedly called out Captain Ram. A voice responded, Captain reporting. Kian immediately spoke up, reminding him, hey, don't call him Captain. Ram scoffed, who cares? You're the one who's going to die anyway. Dyra spoke up, it's good to see you again, Captain. Then Eden also spoke, saying, I was afraid you'd be stuck in the capital for the rest of your life, Captain. Luxion said exasperatedly, I told you not to call me Captain. Just Luxion is fine, and drop the formalities. Ram asked, confused, why is someone following you all the way here? An assassin. A spy. He replied angrily, she's just a guest staying here for a while. Kian whispered to them, that guest is a girl. They responded, dumbfounded. What? They immediately jumped up. Hey, you guys stop. Smoke billowed from the house. They stared blankly. Smoke. Ilas, struggling, knelt down on the ground. Is there a fire? The house is filled with smoke. Is it on fire? Luxion kicked the door open and shouted, Ilas. Ilas, bewildered, said Luxion. The door. He chuckled nervously and replied, I saw smoke, so I thought something had happened. He looked up and said, huh, what's that smell? Ilas, her face covered in soot, said, oh, that. A few hours ago. She peeked inside. Excuse me. The room was covered in dust. This place is filthy. Ilas chuckled. Look at all the dust. She was momentarily surprised. A dusty white rug in the room. There's even a rug in here. Wait, it looks expensive. Memories flooded back. Her mother stroked the silk, saying, Ilas, this color is beautiful, isn't it? This kind of dye can only be found in the south of the island. Her mother smiled and replied, they use a secret formula that no one knows. Ilas said in astonishment, they must have thought long and hard before buying it, and now no one even cares about it. I'll clean it later. She admired the place. This place is amazing. She said, surprised, wait, is that an oven? There are some expensive pots here, too. Ilas picked one up, wiping the dust off, thinking, this place has more valuable things than I thought. I need to wash these and use them. Great, but I'm bored to death. I heard houses like this have a back door leading to a yard. Ilas went out back, just as I thought. I knew there'd be a well here. Ilas drew some water, no moss, and completely clean. I can use this water right away. She thought excitedly, this is more interesting than I thought. Maybe I should look for some other things, too. Then Ilas went back inside, saying, there must be some barrels somewhere. She opened a door and was pleasantly surprised. Inside was a stockpile of food, a food storage room. Ilas picked up a potato and said, even though the quality isn't that great with these ingredients, fresh vegetables are laid out on the table. I can cook them. I've always wanted to do this, ever since I was at the convent. Ilas excitedly gathered the vegetables. All right, let's cook. I couldn't cook at the convent. I would have been discovered if I started a fire. She cleaned thoroughly. It had been neglected for a long time, so it wasn't cleaned regularly. As she cleaned, she recited recipes to herself. Mix vinegar and salt in a 1-to-1 ratio. I saw the chef at the convent do that. I read books to survive. Ilas started a fire. She put the pan on and added butter. I never thought the things I secretly learned in the library kitchen would be so useful. She added slices of meat to the pan. Then she chopped the vegetables and added them to the stir-fry. A delicious soup was born. Ilas tasted it. I'm alone, but I'm free. After leaving the convent, I ran away frantically. Then I got married to reclaim my inheritance. Then I ran away again. But Ilas's eyes stung a little. Now I'm free. She wiped her eyes. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind her. Ilas recognized the voice and turned around. Luxion, he said in astonishment, in such a short time, you made stew. Kian said in surprise, she's cooking. Dyrus was also surprised. What? Really? Ilas chuckled awkwardly. Hee, would you like to eat it with your friends first? Luxion paused for a moment and softly replied, friends. He turned and frowned, silently warning them. If anyone calls me captain, I'll kill them. They all serve themselves. The tempting stew was placed on the table. Thanks for the meal. Ilas asked shyly, how does it taste? Luxion, unable to speak from enjoying the food, simply said delicious. He picked up his spoon. Luxion exclaimed, I've never had such delicious stew. Did you really only cook at the convent before? The others ate enthusiastically, praising the food. Damn delicious. I want to eat this forever. She beamed. Really? I'm so glad. I wish I had made more. Kian said excitedly. It was worth filling up the pantry, wasn't it? Luxion looked at him and replied. Indeed. Kian, his face bright, said to Ilas, I heard you'll be staying in this town for a while. If you don't mind, could you cook for us? Luxion interjected indignantly. What? Why should Ilas cook for you every day? You guys eat like bottomless pits. Suddenly, a voice interrupted him. It's okay. I want to do this. Ilas stood up, full of excitement. Cooking. I want to cook. After everyone had eaten their fill, the dishes were neatly stacked. Kian said with satisfaction, that was amazing. Ramon frowned slightly and reminded him. Kian put down his spoon and fork gently. Easy there. Rose praised. It was truly delicious. Eden smiled and said, thank you so much, Ilas. He continued, up until now, we only knew how to grill food because none of us can cook. With a slightly disgruntled expression, Luxion added, Eden saying that now you're here to take care of the cooking. The dishes were soaked in water. Luxion gently scrubbed the dishes. Ilas watched him from behind, thinking Luxion is very good at washing dishes. Even so, the bowl is still greasy. The fruit platter on the table was meticulously prepared. He's good at cutting fruit too. She smiled and said, but Luxion, he started, surprised by her words, are you mad at me? He quickly turned back, saying what? No, not at all. They cheerfully waved goodbye, but he remained silent after everyone else left. Is it because I said I wanted to cook? The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Luxion chuckled reassuringly, telling her, how could I be mad at someone who makes such delicious food? He placed his hand on the sink, adding, it's just, I feel guilty. I only told you good things about this place and brought you here, but now the town is in chaos. It's like I brought you here just to cook. He frowned slightly, muttering, and those gluttonous pigs. Kian's eyes lit up. Ilas, can you make croissants? Dyrus added, and fruit tarts too. He clenched his fists in exasperation. How dare they ask for such things? Ilas spoke up, bewildered. Are you remembering things wrong? Luxion knelt down, covering his face. I'm so embarrassed. You're my guest. And yet, she softly said, Luxion, I don't want to be just a guest. He looked up. She explained, even if I only live here for a year, I don't want to live formally like a stranger. Ilas smiled gently. It feels like I'm separated from everyone. I'm tired of being alone. When I couldn't talk to anyone, I started stuttering. So I desperately tried talking to the birds. To the fruit, to a yellow rabbit. I wanted to talk to people. So even though it was dangerous, I tried going down to the village. In the end, I was lonely again when I returned. But today's meal was different. I could make a big meal without having to save ingredients. And they ate everything. They asked me things and told me their stories. They asked where I want to live forever. Ilas said cheerfully, and I want to cook so many dishes, but I can't eat them all by myself. So, if there are more people, Luxion stepped closer to her, saying, I'll eat them for you. She looked at him, surprised. Huh? He continued, his face now as red as a tomato. Just make a lot. I'll eat it all. so don't give any to those guys. Embarrassed, he covered his face. Ilas gratefully replied, "Thank you, Luxion." He thought, what did I just say? She wiped her eyes. Luxion smiled gently at her. Ilas, you don't need my permission, he said. While we're here, I'll be your bodyguard. But I didn't bring you here to give you orders. I just want you to be comfortable. Do whatever you want. Ilas looked bewildered, but he instructed her, don't overwork yourself, and make sure you understand what I mean. She eagerly replied, I'm very good at this. Warm sunlight streamed through the window of the room. The two were chatting. All right, I'll wash the rest of the dishes and make the bed upstairs. Okay, I'll go up there after checking the ingredients. Then Ilas smiled and said, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's meal. Later, Ilas went to the food storage area and was shocked. What is this? The food inside is spoiled and smells awful. Everything in here is ruined. When did they bring this in? She picked up a potato to examine it. Why are there more potatoes here? They've sprouted. Oh my God, how much butter did they buy? I think it's all gone bad. A scream echoed from within the room. Ilas, her face a mask of dismay, stumbled after a tumbling Eros beetle. This place is worse than the convent. It's such a mess. Everyone must be struggling, just like the mercenaries. I can't believe they'd spend money on food that's inedible. She called out urgently to Luxion, hurrying to find him. What's the situation with the food stores? She continued, her voice laced with confusion. Most of the things they bought are spoiled and unusable. He turned around, surprised. Really? Kian said he'd made arrangements with the peddler. I'll ask him tomorrow. More importantly, he said cheerfully, I changed the bed linens. I won't be sleeping here tonight. He walked towards her, smiling. I'm heading out now. Ilas asked, puzzled, where are you going? You're not sleeping here. Luxion held up a small flute. If anything happens, use this. He continued, it's a flute. Its sound can be heard from the other side of the mountain. I'll be back tomorrow, so sleep well. Ilas pictured threading the flute onto her necklace. If I string it like this, I won't lose it, right? She mused, looking at the necklace. A delighted expression spread across her face. I'll blow it whenever I'm with Luxion. But inwardly, she thought it would be a disaster if he actually came running just because I played it as a joke. Picking up a large bag, she said, time to pack. A weary expression settled on her face. I'll have to go to a different house tomorrow morning anyway, Ilas reminded herself. Rubbing her neck as if to ease the ache, she said, time for a bath. Opening the door to the bathroom, she gasped in surprise. Oh! Before her was a wooden bathtub, complete with candles and bath supplies. Luxion prepared a warm bath for me, she realized gratefully. Ilas chuckled to herself, thinking, no wonder he kept boiling water after washing the dishes. The image of him heating the water stuck with her. I'm indebted to him again, she murmured. The thought brought a blush to her cheeks. Clutching a towel, she thought, it's so kind of him to sleep elsewhere. A sweet, happy feeling washed over her. Leaning against the door, she mused, I know it's not easy for a man and a woman to sleep in the same room, but with Luxion, it would probably be all right. Outside, night had fallen. Softly, she said, all right, time for a bath. Meanwhile, at Kian's house, he exclaimed, what? Give me back my bed. Luxion, acting as if he were at home, replied, be quiet and go to sleep. Morning arrived, sunlight streaming through the window. Ilas stretched after a long sleep. Her face flushed with sleep, she instinctively burrowed back under the covers, murmuring, it must be colder because we're in the north. Suddenly remembering something, she reached for her large bag and rummaged through it. Where's the map? She muttered. Finding it, she held it up and wondered, ruin is the nearest gold vault, right? Looking at the map, she thought, 20,000 gold pieces are kept here out of the 100,000 my mother left me. The mention of money makes everyone happy, and she was no exception. Her eyes gleamed as she thought, I heard the treasury hired a lot of mercenaries for protection. Ilas stared intently, her thoughts continuing. The border soon crossed is also enchanted, so the war won't be easy. Her mind raced, but I'll receive the money in a year. 20,000 gold pieces. That means I'll live comfortably for 15 years. Lying on the bed, smiling happily, Ilas held the map and thought, if I find the money, I'll give Luxion a huge gift. She reminded herself, I can't be stingy with my benefactor. Having said that, she hugged the map and giggled. She wondered, how much should I give him? Time to change and have breakfast. Getting out of bed and preparing to change, Ilas grabbed her long hair and tried to look behind her. There's no mirror here, she said. Beginning her quest to find a mirror, Ilas climbed onto the bed. Then she ran to the wardrobe, pacing back and forth, lost in thought. Suddenly, she noticed something in a drawer. "What's this?" she wondered. Looking at the paper in her hand, she said in surprise, "It's Luxion." She saw him pictured with someone else. Who is this girl? She wondered. Clutching the drawing tightly, Ilas was suspicious. He never mentioned dating anyone. A flicker of sadness crossed her eyes. She told herself, but he doesn't have to tell me. This is just a marriage contract after all. Ilas stared at the drawing for a moment, then noticed something odd. "Huh," she said, surprised. "That mole. That's not Luxion," she wondered. Lost in her doubts, she heard a voice call out, "Hello, are you awake?" Startled, she replied, "Yes, I'm up." It was Luxion. He smiled and said, "Did you sleep well?" Then he looked at her and continued, "Wow, that's beautiful." Ilas responded with a surprised, "Huh." Seeing this, Luxion chuckled and said, "I mean the outfit." Ilas froze for a few seconds. Luxion explained, "It looks like a dress, but it actually has pants sewn inside." Ilas, feeling more comfortable and acting naturally in front of Luxion, replied, "The clothes in the north are so comfortable. I can put tons of things in the pockets." Then she held up the drawing and asked, "Oh, I found this in the drawer while looking for a mirror." The air grew awkward. Ilas looked away and said, "Sorry, I looked at it without your permission." It's a beautiful drawing. Your expression is captured so well." Luxion looked at the drawing with a surprised expression. He chuckled and said, "That's not me." Ilas asked, surprised, "It's not." Her surprise was evident in her gestures. She said, "But it looks just like you." To herself, she thought, "So that's not Luxion's girlfriend." A sense of relief washed over her. Then she wondered, "But why am I relieved?" Seeing her blush, Luxion replied, "It's been a long time since I've seen this drawing." She looked at the drawing and asked, "The person who looks like you is at you?" He immediately replied, "That's right, that's my father. And this is..." Seeing him pause, she looked at him expectantly. He simply smiled sweetly and continued, "This is my mother." Luxion remembered the flames engulfing his mother's portrait. He said, "I remember my father burning all the portraits of my mother. I guess he couldn't burn this one." Luxion softly said, "Thank you, Ilas." Ilas responded with a surprised, "Huh." He said, "If you hadn't found it, it would have stayed in that drawer forever, and its existence would have been forgotten." She rubbed her head, trying to dispel her embarrassment. She replied, "No, I just found it by chance." To herself, she thought, "I mistook that girl for his girlfriend." Luxion closed his eyes to compose himself. He realized he had unconsciously told Ilas that the woman in the drawing was his mother. He and Ilas laughed it off. The room was cozy and quaint. Ilas asked him where his parents were now. His eyes saddened as he replied, "They're both gone now." Ilas lowered her head in a show of sympathy. She said, "I understand. I'm sorry for being insensitive." He smiled and replied, "It's okay." Suddenly remembering something, he quickly said, "Let's have breakfast and then go house hunting." The plates were empty, a testament to a satisfying breakfast. He said, "First, let's choose a good house from among the vacant ones." Then he continued, "We can leave if the owner returns." Ilas laughed and asked, "Okay, but is it all right not to pay?" Luxion stood up and replied, "They should be paying you. If a house is unoccupied, it quickly becomes dilapidated." Hearing this, she said, "Oh, right." She remembered her old home and thought, "The shack I used to live in was also abandoned. Because it was swept, cleaned, and organized every day, it gradually became a place of life. Actually, I really like Luxion's house, so I want to fix it up first." She sighed, chiding herself for being greedy. He walked over to her and said, "Let's go find house now." She looked at him, smiled, and replied, "Let's go." As they went outside, she exclaimed, "The weather is so nice today." Then she reminded herself, "It's best not to cause any damage." Luxion scratched his head, wondering, "My house really isn't that comfortable, is it?" He asked Ilas, "Do you have any requirement for the house you want?" She turned to look at him. Ilas began to list her requirements. "First, I want a big kitchen. There should be an oven there too." As they walked, Luxion asked, "All right, a kitchen, and what else?" She excitedly replied, "I want a well in the backyard." He listened and exclaimed, "A well is important, huh?" Meanwhile, Ilas said softly, "And I hope it's close to Luxion's house." He stroked his chin thoughtfully and said, "Perhaps." The words he wanted to say turned into unspoken thoughts. He thought of Kian's house. Here, he led her there and explained, "This is my friend's house. It'll be easier to talk things over when the owner returns." Luxion noticed something. He thought in surprise, "Huh?" Then, looking at the footprints ahead, he continued to think someone has gone inside. Now, curious, Luxion wondered who it could be. He sat down and said, "Wait, let's examine the tracks." Luxion considered the footprints, then exclaimed, "Kian." He rushed out and cheerfully greeted, "Hello, Ilas." Luxion frowned and asked, "What are you doing here?" Kian grinned, pointing inside. "Doing what? I didn't have anything to do, so I'm fixing up someone else's house." Luxion stepped forward, questioning, "Why Kian's house? You two aren't that close." Kian argued, "Even if we're not close, I'm still allowed to do it." Kian stepped forward with a smile. "Do you want to take a peek inside? I think it would be great." Behind him, Luxion wore an annoyed expression. Ilas was surprised by the interior. Luxion explained, "Kian is quite introverted and likes to organize things." She looked at a small cabinet. He continued, "The house is always clean." Ilas found what she was looking for and said to Luxion, "There's an oven in this kitchen." Ilas frowned, thinking, "Luxion's kitchen is bigger. I wonder if it's okay to use the kitchen all by myself." They both walked to a door. Ilas said, "I think this is the bedroom. Where's the bed?" Looking inside the room, Luxion's face paled. It turned out the room had a hole in it. He wondered, what's with this wall? One phenomenon, but two reactions. Luxion was bewildered, while Ilas and Kian were surprised. Kian confidently pointed and said, "Ah, that's what I'm fixing. You can't sleep here with a hole that big." Kian shrugged and asked, "This place isn't good, is it, Ilas?" She softly replied, "Yeah, that's right." Luxion looked outside through the large hole. He thought, "The hole looks fresh." Looking back, Luxion saw Kian chatting cheerfully with Ilas. Naturally, he was extremely annoyed. Luxion frowned, thinking, what is he doing? He walked over and said, "Move aside. This place will be fine." He was irritated by the interruption. Suddenly, Kian smiled mischievously. With Ilas and Luxion close together, he looked at them and thought, "This is my chance. My chance to find Luxion a girlfriend." The scene shifted to when Luxion and Kian were children. Kian thought, "If it's about girls, I know how to make him suffer." Then he remembered a crowd and the sound of a girl's voice. Luxion reached out. The scene changed again. Behind a wall was a red-haired girl. She said, "Luxion, when you grow up, you have to live with me. Understand?" The gift was already in Luxion's hands before she finished speaking. Kian's face paled. Luxion replied, "Thank you." The scene shifted to another time. Kian thought, even on the battlefield, it's still a mess. The girl rushed forward and grabbed his hand, saying, "Become my partner, Luxion." He could only reply, no. Then countless awkward situations arose. Two girls jumped out from the bushes. The blue-haired one said, "No, be my partner." The blonde one replied, "Me first." Luxion ran away in fear. He cried out, "I don't want to." Night had fallen. Beside the fire was a pot of fragrant milk. Before letting Luxion run away in fear. He cried out, "I don't want to." Night had fallen. Beside the fire was a pot of fragrant milk. Kian looked at him and asked, "Is there anyone you like?" Captain Luxion calmly replied, "No." Kian continued, "Are you planning to stay single until you die?" Luxion's gaze dropped as he said, "I don't need a partner." Kian was surprised. "What?" Luxion tensely replied, "I'm tired. I'll never marry anyone." Kian sighed and said, "Poor guy." The conversation he just remembered was that scene. Kian imagined Luxion and Ilas together. He thought, "I almost gave up." He pictured Luxion introducing Ilas. "This is Ilas. She's the daughter of an acquaintance. She has nowhere to go right now." But reality snapped him back. He was surprised by what he saw. Kian saw them laughing together. His vision was filled with their light. He thought, this will work. At another house, a voice called from the doorway, "Everyone, there are a few things you need to do for Luxion." Hearing this, everyone looked at Kian in surprise. He put on a confident expression. He thought, even if it doesn't work, I'll keep trying until the end. Now, they found another hole. It was in the roof. Ilas said, "The war must have been fierce, huh?" This made Luxion's face pale. She continued, "None of the houses are intact." Luxion angrily thought, "Those bastards." Kian, Ilas, and Luxion walked down the road. Kian walked ahead. The other two playfully rested their chins in their hands, looking thoughtful. Hung really didn't manage to collect anything. Huh. Should I stay at Luxion's house any longer? Ilas wondered. Meanwhile, Luxion glared at Kian with an irritated expression. He fumed inwardly. Something fell off. Kian kept trying to link him with Ilas. Luxion imagined himself embracing Ilas and then presenting a marriage certificate to Kian, declaring, "Ilas and I are legally married, so back off." He pictured Kian utterly shocked by the news. Luxion continued his internal monologue, thinking, at this rate, even more people will bother Ilas. Lost in thought, Luxion sighed, a contemplative look on his face. We'll move somewhere else within the next year. Suddenly, Ilas spotted something. Oh my, she exclaimed excitedly. She bent down, reaching toward a small plant on the ground. Basil. Ilas looked around happily. Why are there so many herbs growing along this road? All three of them looked around at the expansive herb garden and the few houses nearby. Luxion smiled and explained, this is Ainan's farm. This plot of land that looks like a field of weeds. This is Ainan's farm. Looking towards the garden, he continued, even though he mainly grows 5-cup herbs, he also wants to cultivate other special varieties, so he bought and planted many different kinds of plants. Hearing this, Ilas also looked around. Then she agreed, it's true. There are all sorts of other herbs here too. Looking toward the building, she asked, what's that? Luxion looked up at Ilas and replied, that's probably the shed Ainan uses. He usually keeps his farming tools there, right? Suddenly, someone called out, oh my Luxion and Lady Ilas. It was the voice of several people nearby. Ilas looked towards them and smiled. Hello. Eden clasped his hands together excitedly and asked, what's on the menu for lunch today? Google, standing behind him, chimed in, meat. Meat. Ramon sighed, exasperated by the two. He said to Ilas, anything is fine, but please make a large portion. Ilas, picturing a dish of stir-fried noodles with shrimp, garnished with fresh basil, excitedly announced, today, it's pesto basil. Pesto basil sauce is made by blending basil, garlic, pine nuts, oil, and cheese powder. There's plenty of pasta in the pantry. The faces of those around her fell upon hearing this, and Ilas realized something was amiss. She scratched her cheek and asked hesitantly, what's wrong? Ramon answered her question. Basil is just a weed. Eden added disappointedly, we can't get enough energy from just eating grass. Realizing the misunderstanding, Ilas quickly clarified, we'll also have grilled meat and potatoes. Eden's eyes lit up. Really? Ramon exclaimed excitedly. Mix it all together, right? Luxion suddenly snapped, his anger flaring. Eat separately. Eden, Ramon, Dyrus. The three responded in unison as they were scolded. Ramon protested. Hey. Ilas, sensing the escalating tension, intervened. Stop. She stepped in front of Luxion, shielding him. Don't hit him. Ramon complained, but Luxion hit first. Ilas, flustered and unsure who was at fault, pleaded, Luxion is weak. Please let it go. The group pictured a powerful figure clad in armor and a cloak, fur at his neck, wielding a sword and vanquishing enemies, and looked at each other in bewilderment. To like Luxion, that's embarrassing. What a strange thing to say, Ilas thought. From the beginning, she had seen that Luxion was quite weak. Among the villagers, he was the weakest. But seeing everyone's reaction, she realized she had said something wrong. Flustered, she blurted out, anyway, please just tell me a little. The others, seeing Ilas's reaction, didn't know what to say, only wondering to themselves, what is she planning to do? Ilas, while picking leaves, instructed everyone, if we pick all the basil leaves at once, they might die. Just pick the medium-sized leaves and leave the rest. That way, when they grow back, we can pick them again. The others absorbed her words. So that's how it is. Ilas continued to delegate tasks. Eden, Ramon, and Dyrus, come over here and pick basil leaves. Kian and Google, come back to the house with me. At this point, Luxion asked Ilas, do you need me to do anything? Ilas replied seriously, first, I have to chop potatoes and onions and boil the pasta. Luxion, after hearing the steps, said, let's keep it simple then. These guys know how to chop potatoes and onions too. Kian enthusiastically chimed in, right, we can do it. Ilas, seeing this, was grateful and happy. If everyone helps, I'd be very thankful. Then, I'll ask Kian to prepare the potatoes and Google to prepare the onions. Kian, with his hands behind his head, wondered aloud to Ilas, but isn't it a bit much trouble to make it yourself? Thinking of the delicious jars of jam, he continued, we don't usually buy it because no one knows how to use it. But if you need it, we'll order it for you. Ilas cheerfully answered Kian's question. It's okay. Making it myself will be much tastier and cheaper. I have to save every penny. I'll make the most of everything I can to grow. Kian continued to wonder, grow. Who? Ilas cheerfully raised her hand, claiming me. She continued excitedly. Even though it's small, I want to have my own little plot. Ilas then looked towards Luxion. So, can I borrow that patch of land? Luxion replied, no problem. Anan isn't back yet. Ilas continued, and Kian is in charge of ordering, right? Kian smiled and nodded. Ilas returned to the topic. There are some things I want to order specifically, and some things I want to remove. I'm also curious about the prices of the items. Kian scratched his head sheepishly, saying, I'm not too sure about the prices. I kept the receipts, so I'll bring them. Ilas cheerfully replied, really? Thanks. Having received his task, Kian quickly ran to get the receipts. Ilas continued to ask Luxion, is it possible to sell the grown plants to a merchant? Luxion, a little surprised, asked back, sell the remaining plants. Ilas cheerfully replied, yeah, I don't know if it's inherited from my mother or not, but making money makes me really happy. Luxion smiled. All right, I'll ask Kian later. Kian returned with the receipts. He cheerfully shouted to Ilas while running, Ilas, over here. I brought them. Ilas was a little surprised. So fast. Kian stood in front of Ilas and happily handed her the receipts. Here. Despite being surprised by Kian's speed, Ilas politely replied, thank you. Ilas took the receipts. After reading them for a moment, she was surprised by something. Kian, not realizing anything, was happily thinking about what he had accomplished. I kept them really well, right? I'm so meticulous. Hearing this, Ilas became even more exasperated. What? The more she read the invoice, the more shocked she became by its contents. Why did it even have this invoice? Her anger grew with each line. This invoice, it should list the price and quantity of each item ordered. But all the vegetables, milk, and spices totaled 20 gold coins. There were no individual prices. Kian, seeing Ilas's expression, sheepishly scratched his face and explained, I wasn't going to show you this. You asked, so I did. Ilas turned the invoice over and over. She was shocked by the contents. Even with rising prices in the north, this was absurd. Her anger flared. It should be 3 gold coins total. What is this? A 5 gold coin delivery fee. Ilas's fury startled Kian, who raised his hands defensively, trying to calm her down. Kian continued to explain, the price is so high because the mountain road is blocked. They have to take a detour to deliver the goods. Ilas, now calmer, asked, is it that expensive to hire a carriage in the north? Luxion spoke up, yes it is. Ilas continued to question, Luxion, is that true for you too? He nodded, agreeing with Kian. In the north, the villages are far apart. You have to bring a carriage. But I haven't seen anyone using them to evacuate. Ilas continued, so how much does one cost? Luxion explained, a small carriage is about 50 copper coins, and a large one is over 100. Ilas was surprised. Really? She imagined a swindler pocketing a large sum of their money, thinking to herself, these fools. The delivery fee is 1/10 the price of a carriage. They're profiting from the deliveries. All right, Ilas said. Kian, when do these people come to the village? Kian answered readily, once a week. They'll be here tomorrow. Ilas made up her mind. Okay, tomorrow I'll just keep ordering. Thank you, anyway. Kian, pleased with the praise, scratched his head shyly. I've been buying everything according to your requests, so I don't know what to do with the remaining ingredients. Ilas realized something. Oh, she thought. Turning to Kian, she handed him a pouch of coins. Oh, right. I'll give you this. 5 gold coins a week. There's about 40 gold coins left. Kian was surprised. 5 gold coins. I thought it was 1. Kian scratched his face, his eyes wide with a cute, embarrassed look. Really, we thought this price was fine. He continued, Ilas, you don't need to pay for the shared living expenses. Ilas asked why. We discussed it. Do you find cooking every day tiring? Ilas understood their intention, thinking, so that's it. Kian continued, so you don't need to pay for the cooking ingredients. I'll pay 10 gold coins a week on your behalf. Ilas raised her hand in refusal, a little overwhelmed. Really, I'm fine. I enjoy cooking. That's why I'm in the kitchen. Luxion spoke up, no, Ilas. We're asking you to do this for us. You cook lunch for us, so we should pay you. He smiled at Ilas and continued, even if you enjoy cooking, there will be days you don't want to. Looking at Luxion, Ilas realized something. He's a mercenary, so his pay must be high, she thought. No, Ilos won't refuse everyone's kindness anymore. If so, I don't want to do the work I love anymore either. Kian and Kogan nodded in understanding. Luxion also smiled and continued Ilos's words. We all want that. You just thought about the scene. Ilos, sitting tall on the bed, continued speaking. More than anything, when you come back on the weekend sick, you must rest. At this time, Luxion continued to imagine the image of Ilos dressed neatly, wearing a hat, a basket on her arm, waving goodbye to go learn cooking recipes. I'll go back to the Western village, she continued to instruct. When you're absent for something, just let us know beforehand. Ilos was a little embarrassed to hear the conditions everyone set. Aren't these conditions too beneficial for me? Shaking his head, he looked at her and smiled. Ha. He picked up the invoice and thought about the items on it, like bread, beef, and pastries. Look at what those pigs wrote yesterday. They even wrote their own order list. Kian also took the invoice and snorted proudly. I wrote down a few things I wanted to eat. I don't know how to thank you for accepting. Kogan, standing close behind, also nodded in agreement, full of pride. Luxion was speechless at this situation, while Ilos was dumbfounded, not knowing what to say. Ilos was amused by this childishness. Your hand must be tired. Luxion ended the conversation. Well then, let's stop talking here. Let's prepare lunch together. Ilos cheerfully replied, okay. She didn't forget to instruct Kian and Kogan. Wash the potatoes and boil the eggs for me. Okay. The image shifted to a bowl of peeled potatoes. Delicious. Kian and Google sat peeling potatoes. Between them was a bowl of unpeeled potatoes. Ilos looked at Luxion and said with a smile, Luxion, I have something to ask you. Luxion looked at her curiously. What is it? In the kitchen, a fire had been lit and a pot was on top, cooking something. On the table were several spices, along with some basil leaves. Ilos took the basil leaves, cupped them in her hands, and crushed them. While demonstrating, she instructed, squeeze the fresh basil juice for me, please. Luxion replied, oh, this is as easy as pie. Saying that, he also imitated what Ilos had just done. While Luxion was crushing the basil leaves, Ilos reread the invoice and realized something. But Luxion's name isn't on the list. Luxion looked at her and smiled. Don't worry about me. Ilos looked at him. I know the others work harder than you, but I can't help but worry about you. Because, reaching this point, Ilos didn't say it aloud, but only thought to herself, I also want to cook the dishes you like. Receiving the concern, Luxion cheerfully replied, I'm really okay. I'm finished. Is there anything else I can help you with? Ilos raised her hand thoughtfully. Then, excitedly, she looked towards something. All right now. It was a wooden container with a handle on the outside. Inside were blades. If the handle was turned, the blades inside would also rotate. Ilos mixed a combination of basil, pine nuts, garlic, and olive oil, poured it into the container, and then instructed, turn this. Luxion followed her instructions, turning the handle on the container. All right, Ilos encouraged, a little harder, turn it harder. Luxion also tried to turn as fast as he could. Ilos stood by and cheered him on. That's right, you're doing great, just like that. Ilos picked up the cheese and turned towards the grater. Finally, grate the cheese. Luxion looked at her with a bit of worry. Was this too much work for Ilos? Perhaps living in a larger village would be better. Meanwhile, Ilos had finished the dish. A jar containing a green mixture was brought out. Today's basil pesto is complete. Ilos scooped out a spoonful and offered it to Luxion. Try it. Luxion sampled the dish. His eyes widened as he tasted it. He brought a hand to his mouth. It's so good. Ilos beamed at his reaction. Really? Luxion picked up the jar, puzzled. How is this possible? I've had this at a restaurant before, but yours is completely different. Ilos covered her mouth with her hand, smiling. Luxion continued his praise. The restaurant version was a bit heavy and not as fragrant as yours. Ilos explained, it's probably because of the processing time. If you eat basil pesto that's been stored for too long, it'll taste like that. She retrieved the jar from Luxion, who was practically inhaling it. Don't eat any more. She thought to herself, I'm so glad he likes it. She looked at Luxion with a happy smile. I'll make you something even better than this. Luxion looked intrigued. Something even better. The table was laden with delicious dishes. Fried rice with sliced beef, Dios's stir-fried noodles, and Eden's ramen. Eden and Dios, having just returned, walked into the room and were immediately greeted by the enticing aroma. Eden exclaimed, it smells amazing. Dios added, this isn't a restaurant, is it? Ilas brought out a basket of bread, smiling. Everyone, wash your hands and let's eat. The others responded enthusiastically. Okay, everyone happily enjoyed the meal, twirling pasta around their forks. In a flash, all the food was gone. Someone sighed contentedly. The food was so good. Ramon smiled with satisfaction, picking his teeth. Dios gave 2 thumbs up. Eden declared, "Your cooking is the best." Luxion brought tea over to Ilas. "Ilas, let me pour you some tea." He then turned sharply to the others. "All right, you're all done eating, so get up and wash the dishes." Ilas, slightly embarrassed, looked at Luxion. "Oh, thank you." Everyone started cleaning up. Eden, while wiping down the table, said, "We should probably clean the stove, too." Ramon, washing dishes, agreed. "Yeah, I see a lot of ash under the oven." Ramon looked at the ash-covered oven. "It's pretty dirty. We'll have to scrape all that out. And we probably need to fix the ventilation fan above the stove, too." Ilas spoke up, "Right? Today, instead of looking for a house, I want to clean the house for Luxion." Eden smiled. "All right, I'll clean the oven later." Dios chimed in, "Then I'll clean the chimney." Kian also volunteered, "I'll clean the roof and sweep the yard." Kian observed the scene, thinking to himself, these guys used to be so gloomy, living off boiled potatoes every day. He wiped away tears of joy. Before Ilas arrived, everyone was withdrawn and no one talked about their past. Yesterday, everyone was eating and sharing stories. He lowered his hand, revealing glistening eyes and a tear on his cheek. It's all thanks to Ilas's delicious cooking. He extended his hand towards Ilas with a slight bow. "Marry me." Luxion and Ilas were stunned by his sudden proposal. Luxion thought to himself, annoyed. Marriage. Northerners treat marriage lightly, but for Southerners like Ilas, it's a serious matter. Kian put a hand to his chin, feigning contemplation. "I'll consider it if you give me all the remaining basil." Kian laughed in response. "That's a tough request." The two chatted cheerfully. Luxion, however, felt a pang of discomfort. Wait a minute. Luxion thought back to when he registered his marriage with Ilas. He thought to himself, I guess I also take marriage lightly. For Northerners, marriage is like signing an agreement. It doesn't hold any other meaning. He looked towards Ilas, who was laughing and talking cheerfully, and grew thoughtful. Ilas also treats marriage casually, like a Northerner. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Luxion, what are you thinking about?" Kian looked at Luxion with a sly grin. "I suddenly feel like picking some basil." At that moment, Luxion kicked Kian out. "Go home and bring some wood over here now." Ilas looked at Luxion and asked, "What do you need the wood for? Are you planning to fix something?" Luxion smiled and replied, "Oh no, I'm planning to make a 4-legged stand. I noticed the kitchen counter is a bit high, making it difficult for you to cook." Ilas was a little surprised that Luxion had noticed such a detail. She tucked her hair behind her ear and declined, flustered. "I'm fine. You don't need to do that. Besides, you have to leave soon, right? Why bother making a stand?" She thought to herself, embarrassed. He even helped me move. He has to find a place to live too, and yet he's so considerate. Ilas pointed vaguely in a direction and continued, "Oh, that last house I saw earlier, I think that place is quite nice." Luxion interrupted her. "Wait, Ilas." He noticed her flustered state and raised a hand, signaling her to calm down. He said, "That's the house you'll be living in, so think carefully." This time, it was Luxion's turn to be flustered. It seemed he realized he was being a bit too concerned about Ilas. So he quickly explained, "If you choose hastily and aren't satisfied, it'll be more troublesome to move later. You can stay at my place as long as you need. Don't feel burdened." Luxion made a bold suggestion, "Or you could just continue staying at my place." Ilas was a bit taken aback. "Huh, continue." Luxion continued, awkwardly, together. Suddenly, Kian cheerfully burst through the door with some wooden planks on his shoulder, shattering the romantic atmosphere between the two. "I'm back." Luxion and Ilas both blushed and turned away, embarrassed. Luxion took the planks from Kian. "Ah, thanks." Ilas was flustered, thinking about the previous conversation. He suggested living together. Such a difficult thing to say. How should I respond? At that moment, both Ilas and Luxion wore smiles on their faces. A moment later, crack, the sound of a hammer breaking a wooden plank. Luxion turned to look at Ilas, who was sitting behind him, and stammered, "Why, you said something." Ilas also realized something was amiss. "Oh, I was asking where Kian lives." Luxion asked back, suspicious. "Why are you curious about that?" Ilas cheerfully explained, "Why else? Luxion often stays there. If anything happens, I'll go there right away." Hearing that, Luxion immediately brightened. "Ah, so you want to find me?" Ilas nodded in agreement. She continued to explain, "and I also want to know where everyone else lives. When I cook something delicious, I'll bring some over for everyone." Luxion, while assembling the shelf, said to Ilas, "You don't need to bring anything to them. They'll know and come themselves." He happily thought to himself, "She's not concerned about Kian, she's concerned about me." As dusk settled, Luxion wiped the sweat from his forehead and let out a long sigh. He turned to Ilas, who looked surprised. "So what do you think? Do you like it?" Ilas stepped onto the platform. "It's amazing," she replied cheerfully. 1,000 points. A flicker of sadness crossed her face as she realized something. "If I keep living here, I won't see him being a shelf anymore, will I?" She shook the thought away and turned back to Luxion with a bright smile. "Thank you, Luxion." Luxion smiled back. "I'm leaving now. Make sure you lock up. Do you still have the flute?" Ilas pulled something from around her neck. "Oh, I put it on a necklace." Luxion, already outside, waved goodbye. "All right, see you tomorrow." Ilas waved back. As the door closed, the cheerful expression on Ilas's face faded. She thought to herself, "It's so quiet now, even though we were just together. I'm a little scared." Ilas climbed the stairs, still lost in thought. "I should really stay with Luxion." A signpost stood by the roadside. A merchant rode by in his cart. He chuckled greedily. "I'm going to make a lot of money today." Spotting Kian, he feigned concern. "Kian, how are you doing?" Looking at the three of them, he thought, "I've never seen her before." Ilas looked at him cheerfully. "Hello, I'm Ilas. Pleased to meet you, miss," he replied. Then, turning away, he said, "I'll unload the goods after you pay." Kian told him, from now on, Ilas will be in charge of ordering and managing the budget, so please discuss it with her. The merchant frowned. "You're saying Miss Ilas will be handling this?" Looking at the young Ilas, he asked suspiciously, "She's so young. Can she even tell the goods apart?" "Miss, come over here." She walked over and looked at the sacks of goods, thinking to herself. Suddenly, she grabbed one of the sacks. She tossed it off the cart, sending potatoes tumbling out. The merchant, caught off guard, could only watch. Annoyed, he gathered the potatoes back into the sack. "Hey, Mississippi, what are you doing?" Ilas picked up a potato. "I won't be buying these potatoes. Or rather, they're not worth buying." The merchant glared at her. "What do you mean?" She held up the rotten potato. "Can't you see? Some are rotten, some are sprouting. I can't buy these. They'll make people sick. Sprouted potatoes are only good for planting." The merchant was stunned. "How can this be? Some already checked these." He thought frantically, "I didn't intentionally sell bad goods." Kian, watching Ilas, remarked to Luxion, who had joined him, "Ilas seems full of energy, doesn't she?" The merchant continued to fret. "I bought exactly what they asked for. They didn't even confirm the quantity. What am I supposed to do if they don't take them?" He cleared his throat nervously. An idea struck him. "I think I gave you the wrong potatoes, Mississippi. I won't charge you for these. Just take them." Ilas sighed and said, "Even if I take it back, there's nothing I can do with it. You should take it back." She then presented a stack of receipts to him and continued, "There are many discrepancies in last week's invoices." Hearing this, the merchant flinched. "Discrepancies? Where?" She picked up each invoice, looking them over. "I clearly wrote turmeric on the list of things to buy." His voice began to tremble as he replied, but, Ilas held up a jar containing red ingredients and explained, "So I checked the storeroom." Ilas held the jar towards him and questioned, "Is this what you call turmeric?" Startled, he stumbled backward. She remembered her mother's lesson. "Ilas, dear, when good turmeric is soaked in water, the water turns a beautiful yellow. Old turmeric turns the water a deep red." Ilas's mother held up 2 different ingredients to help her distinguish between real and fake turmeric. Red turmeric is dyed with a lot of coloring. Ilas stared in surprise at the fake turmeric in her mother's hand. Her mother continued, "This is the easiest way to tell real turmeric from fake. When selling fake goods, they mix the fake with the real." Looking at the bowl of reddish-pink fake turmeric water on the table, she added, "But this is entirely fake. Truly the lowest quality of all the counterfeits." Ilas picked up a piece of the turmeric, sniffed it, and then commented, "Even the scent is fake." Annoyed, she turned to Kian and asked, "Why did you buy this?" Startling him, Kian recalled the scene of everyone exhausted from the war and explained, after the war ended, everyone was worn out. "I heard that drinking turmeric tea would make the nightmares about the battlefield disappear. It also helps you sleep soundly." Returning to the present, he said sadly, "So, I bought it, but I didn't expect it to be fake." Seeing his sadness, Ilas thought to herself, "The one who is deceived is not at fault. The one who deceives is." She picked up the jar of fake turmeric and questioned the merchant. "You knew it was all fake turmeric, didn't you?" He responded nervously and defensively. "What are you talking about, Mississippi fake turmeric?" Angrily, he pointed at her and asked, "I've been trading here for years. How could I sell fake goods?" Ilas didn't back down. "But this is clearly fake." She continued, "If you're a merchant, you must know how to distinguish real turmeric from fake, right?" She pressed him relentlessly, leaving him unable to retort. "A swindler might mix real goods with fake and sell them. But the goods you delivered were entirely fake. Do you have no conscience?" Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he snapped, "I've heard enough. I can't stand this anymore." Ilas, anticipating his reaction, thought, "Here it comes." He snatched the jar of turmeric from her hand and yelled, "If you insist it's fake, then give it here." Ilas gasped in surprise. He then threw a bag of money at her. "Just take the money and go. I came all this way, worked so hard to get this, and you say it's fake." He declared, "I'll never deliver to this village again. Just you wait." But inwardly, he was panicking. He then whipped his horse and rode off. As the cart began to roll away, Ilas shouted, "Stop right there." Angrily, she stopped him. "I'm not finished yet." Kian and Luxion stood nearby, exchanging knowing glances. Suddenly, Luxion spoke up. "Today is a special occasion for us to show off our talents." Kian agreed. "That's right. I like to stretch my legs a bit, too." The two of them, as if plotting something, looked at Ilas and smiled. Immediately, Ilas ordered them to seize the merchant. The merchant's screams echoed through the forest. He was captured by the two and brought bound before Ilas. She looked at him angrily and said, "I absolutely cannot forgive your actions. Who is the Lord here? First, I must report this matter to the local government office." The merchant, frightened, clasped his hands and pleaded, "My lady, please have mercy. The government office. I mean, all the land here belongs to Hakan. I don't want to see those loathsome people." She listened to his pleas, but remained indifferent to his words. Then, she held a piece of paper in front of him. "In that case, sign this," she said, startling him. Taking the paper, tears streamed down his face. He cried as he spoke, "I admit the goods I delivered were problematic. To compensate for the losses during this past period, for the next year, the products and ingredients Lady Ilas requires will be delivered weekly." Clutching the signed agreement triumphantly, she said, "You've swindled quite a bit of our money during this time." Seeing that she had resolved the matter, Luxion and Kian offered their encouragement. "Good work, Ilas," said Luxion. Kian shyly asked, "But what are you treating us to for lunch today?" Ilas cheerfully replied, "Luxion and Kian have worked hard too." Inside the house, the three of them cooked together happily. She instructed them to put the basil picked yesterday on the tomato salad and to pour mushroom sauce over the steaks. Luxion asked excitedly, "Are we going to clean up this house?" Ilas cheerfully replied, "That's right." Looking at the large hole in the wall, Luxion wondered, what should we do about the hole in the bedroom? She cheerfully offered a new solution. "The bedroom doesn't have a hole. The study does. There's a small bed in here, just my height." Hearing this, Luxion thought to himself, "It's fine to continue staying at my place, too." Then he stammered that. Kian, standing behind him, angrily interrupted Luxion, about to say more. "Luxion, let's go." Luxion continued to think, "I can sleep in the living room, too." Ilas cheerfully asked for their help. "Everyone, please help me move today." She looked at Luxion with pleading eyes. He remained silent, speechless. Only Kian, behind him, continued to protest, unable to stop her. "Don't agree." Finally, Luxion gave in. "All right," he said, causing Kian behind him to despair. He suggested to Ilas, "After we finish moving, next week, we'll go greet the people at the farm. Currently, there are only a few chickens and sheep, but chicken eggs and sheep's milk are always easy to find." She smiled cheerfully in response. "That's good then. It's convenient to have milk nearby." Only Kian, behind them, continued to wonder, how can they be so happy? "I can't understand it now." Luxion cheerfully said to her, Well then, Kian and I will move the rest of the luggage. I'd also like to see the scenery around here. She agreed, replying, be careful. Then, her face filled with excitement, she asked, so I'll go to Ainan's farm then. Ilas walked happily, thinking excitedly, maybe I'll find another type of herb. Suddenly, something brushed past her, making her jump and ask, what was that? What was that? She stammered fearfully. What was that? She clutched her chest. Such a big commotion. She startled, turning her head back and forth, searching for what had just rushed past her. Ilas muttered to herself, watching the figure run away. Well, it's probably not a dangerous animal. That startled me. She reached out and touched the flowers in the farm. The scene inside the farm was peaceful. She happily picked leaves that could be taken back and used as spices. Suddenly, Ilas felt a chill down her spine. Behind her, two bright eyes were watching her. She thought to herself, I feel like something is watching me. But Luxion didn't say anything about dangerous animals. She gently picked up a stone. She gripped the stone tightly in her hand. Glancing towards the shadowy figure, she heard footsteps approaching. She quickly turned around, raising the stone high and asking, who's there? Her older sister was walking up beside her. Ilas cried out in surprise. Her sister stammered fearfully, don't throw that. Ilas, seeing her sister, asked in bewilderment, who is this? Her sister cheerfully introduced herself. I'm Lisa. My family lives on the farm at the end of the village. You're Ilas, right? Surprised that Lisa knew her, she asked, you know me? Lisa answered her question. Kian stopped by my farm this morning. She cheerfully explained, he asked me to give a warm welcome to anyone new who moved in. So I thought you must be the person he mentioned. Ilas laughed awkwardly. Then she threw the stone behind her and said, I was a little scared when I saw someone following me. Suddenly remembering something, she asked, but what are you doing here? Isn't your farm on the other side of the village? Lisa frowned sadly at the mention of this and replied, I need to talk to Kian. She explained, he stopped by this morning to get some eggs. But when I opened the chicken coop, Lisa's anger flared. I discovered 3 chickens were missing. I don't know why. Having said that, she energetically put her arm around Ilas's shoulders and pointed forward. Come on, Ilas. Ilas, taken aback, weakly protested, wait a minute. In the farm, a single eye like a cat's was still watching them intently. A shout rang out from Kian's house. Kian, clutching his head with a painful lump, cried out, it wasn't me. I clearly closed the chicken coop door. But Lisa didn't believe his explanation. Hitting him on the shoulder, she asked, if not you, then who? Nobody else went near the chicken coop this morning. Luxion, standing beside them, also asked helplessly, are you sure you locked the coop? I'm innocent. It really wasn't me. After a while, Kian finally bowed his head and apologized to Lisa. First of all, I sincerely apologize. I'll compensate you for the lost chickens. Hearing this, she asked, do you think paying money is enough? Angrily, she made her demand. I don't need money. Buy chickens at the livestock market and bring them to me. 6 healthy hens. Kian, feeling this was unreasonable, questioned, you lost 3. Why should I buy 6? But immediately after, Lisa hit him. He yelled, stop hitting me. Finally, Lisa left. She didn't forget to add, oh, and by the way, while you're at the market, if they have any wolf pups, buy 2 and bring them back. Kian clenched his fists in frustration and asked, are you exploiting me? Lisa retorted, what? Meanwhile, Luxion and Ilas were amused by their argument. He said cheerfully, forget about Kian, let's go. Ilas laughed loudly. Suddenly, she turned to Luxion with a puzzled look. But why wolf pups? He explained it to her. They're a breed of dog raised on the northern farms, a cross between a dog and a gray wolf. They're very difficult to tame, but once they obey, they're incredibly loyal to their owner. Hearing this, Ilas said excitedly, I want one too. Then she thought to herself, then I wouldn't be so scared when I'm alone at night. Hearing her, Lisa cautioned, don't overestimate yourself. You don't know how hard they are to tame. People usually tame them when they're puppies. If you let them grow up, it becomes much harder. Lisa further explained, I tried raising a few when I was younger. It's normal for them to run away even while they're being trained. Ilas, understanding, said, oh, I see. After walking a bit further, Lisa said goodbye to Ilas. Ilas returned the farewell, saying, be careful, sister. Luxion asked her, do you like dogs? She replied cheerfully, I love all animals, but I've never raised any, so I don't know if I can manage. If I want to raise an animal, I should start with something easy to take care of. Suddenly, she turned to Luxion and asked, are you busy? He replied, no, do you need something? Hearing him say that, she asked without hesitation, actually, I want to take a look at Ainan's warehouse. Luxion looked at her, smiled, and replied, I thought it was something important. Are you going there now? She smiled, took her luggage from him, and said, I'll bring my luggage and be right back. The two parted ways there. Before leaving, she added, just wait for me a moment. Arriving at the door, she was startled and wondered, then worried as she realized she had forgotten to close the door. Oh no! Ilas stood outside the door, looking in. Could someone be here? Looking at the empty room, devoid of any people, the items inside showed no signs of disturbance. She thought again, asking herself, or did I just forget to lock it? Luxion told me to be careful and lock the door. I should hurry and get my bag. Ilas and Luxion were standing outside the farm. Luxion said, Ilas, this is Ainan's warehouse. Seeing how large it was, she cried out in surprise. She happily noticed the rosemary. Rosemary, just what I need to season the meat. Then she diligently put 2 sprigs of rosemary in her bag and asked, Dyrus said he would catch some fish, right? Rosemary is great with fish too. Seeing her so happy, Luxion felt happy as well. Suddenly, he lifted the warehouse door, causing her to ask worriedly, is it okay to break the door like that? Luxion cheerfully replied, if Ainan comes back, he'll have to fix it. Let's go in. Ilas saw the door had been removed and placed outside. She couldn't help but think, Luxion is so strong. Seeing the scene inside, she was surprised. It looks more like a greenhouse than a warehouse. She touched the labels, wondering, what's this? It turned out the labels listed the names of various spices. Rosemary, parsley, fennel, cilantro, pennywort. Could these be the names of all the spices? She opened the packet and exclaimed, there are seeds too. Oh my goodness, is this entire place full of seeds? Luxion approached, holding 2 bulbs, and said to her, there are bulbs here too. Seeing this, she turned to look at him. Then, a big question mark popped in her head. She asked Luxion, what kind of person is Ainan? He replied, stroking his chin, Ainan. He's an odd one. He spends more time in the fields than at home. Luxion offered further explanation. I don't really know how to explain it either, but he often creates strange things. Hearing this, Ilas repeated, strange things. To help Ilas understand, Luxion gave an example. Like the stem is a tomato, but the roots are potatoes. Ilas responded excitedly, no way. That can happen. You're not kidding, are you? Luxion spread his hands, confirming it's true. Everyone wondered how it was possible to graft those 2 plants. But both the potatoes and tomatoes weren't tasty, so we discarded them. Ilas expressed her disappointment. What a shame. Luxion continued to explain about Ainan to her. He occasionally invents some useful things. Even during storms, the crops don't fall over, and locusts don't eat the wheat. Back then, only Ainan's farm was unaffected. He added, so there are rumors that Ainan learned magic from some sorcerer. Despite the absurdity of the rumor, Ilas's eyes widened in admiration of Ainan. She exclaimed, Anam, so he's a pioneer in grafting seeds. Noticing the change in Ilas's words, Luxion thought to himself, embarrassed, she went from Ainan to Anam already. Ilas thought to herself, researching seed grafting really takes a lot of money and effort. I heard they're doing research in the south too, but there's been no progress. I never thought someone in the northern countryside would be studying this field. Luxion turned to her and asked, Ilas, do you need any of these? It turned out to be gardening tools. Without hesitation, she replied, farming tools. I was planning on buying all of these. If the blades get dull, I'll have Kian replace them. She happily picked up each tool, saying this sickle, this hoe, I'll take them all. Then she muttered, seeds and tubers. She recalled the day she went to the market and saw the tubers. These tubers. The shopkeeper, seeing her staring at them, said, I'm not selling these. Hearing this, Ilas asked the shopkeeper, could I have them then? The shopkeeper readily agreed, sure. Looking at the tubers, Ilas happily thought, if I cut off the moldy parts and plant them correctly, I might be able to eat them. The tubers she planted had successfully sprouted. Ilas, tending to the plants outside the farm, said to herself, the tomatoes should be ready to eat soon. Looking at the sprouting tubers, she thought, you grow up strong like the tomatoes, okay. Suddenly, the tomato plants were struck by some kind of disease, causing both the plants and fruit to wither. Ilas cried out in dismay. Holding the diseased fruit, she wondered, why is this happening? She began reading more books to find the cause. Even with seeds taken from healthy plants, after 2 or 3 generations, the germination rate decreases and they become prone to mold or rot. And the plants are susceptible to fungal diseases, negatively affecting the entire field. She took out the seeds from the envelope, thinking, I've read all sorts of books to understand the cause, but in the end, I'll have to abandon the field, remove the mold, and replace the soil. This time, Ilas showed her determination. Before these precious seeds become moldy, I'll learn more from Annam. A shout rang out, followed by the grunts of someone carrying something heavy. Ilas carried a large sack on her back. She yelled out. Luxion said exasperatedly, Ilas, just put it down. But Ilas remained resolute. No way, I can carry it all, and if Anan comes back, he'll have to buy them from me. He took the sack and hoe from her, then wondered aloud why she was working so hard. Flustered, she asked what he meant. Luxion replied, the cooking, the farming. I thought it was a hobby. But you're more serious about it than I expected. She looked up at him when he said that, then slowly responded that. She answered, I want to fix up the village a bit, that's why. Luxion, surprised, asked, fix up the village. Remembering the abandoned houses, she said, you saw a lot of villages on the way here, right? It's easier than you think to tell if a place is deserted. He asked, how so? She continued, places with people, even if the houses are run down, have some kind of commerce, even if it's not bustling. The two of them sat in the carriage, talking. She went on, there will be fields being cultivated, too. Finishing her thought, she mused, if I were living alone for a year, I could still live comfortably. But wherever I live, even if it's just a little, I want it to be better. Her resolve strengthened. So if I cultivate the fields in Eldon Village, people without a place to go, like you and me, she thought, won't want to leave. She said cheerfully, we'll be able to tell it's a place where people live. That's what I mean. Then, a little shyly, she added, also, if it's inconvenient for you, just tell me. I'll do it secretly. Seeing her like this, Luxion laughed. There's no way to stop you, is there? He said to Ilas, I think doing it secretly is out of the question. Hearing this, she looked at him in surprise. He leaned closer to her face and said, because I'll be keeping an eye on you constantly. Before the meal, they discussed amongst themselves. Why are we going to Luxion's house at this hour? Eden suggested, I bet there's some kind of food, right? Since there are so many ingredients, it'll take a while to finish them all. Kian added, the leftovers from lunch are fine too. He caught a whiff of a delicious aroma. Suddenly, several people rushed into the room. Move over. I'm eating first. They jostled for a share. Ilas told them, wash your hands before you eat. They asked, what is this? She replied, it's a snack from the south. You spread butter on an iron skillet, sprinkle salt on the corn kernels, and then roast them. Kian was surprised. If you roast corn, it becomes like this. Someone said, I prefer corn porridge. Another praised, wow, Ilas, this is delicious. So Kian took a bite. It was crunchy and melted in his mouth. The moment he put it in, the soft texture dissolved. Meanwhile, the moderately salty flavor of the salt and the rich taste of butter on the tip of his tongue gradually spread. The aroma and deliciousness made him want to eat more and more. The lingering flavor slowly faded. Kian exclaimed, this is really good. Seeing everyone eating rapidly, he added, leave some for me. Ilas said, I'll make more. When they had finished the delicious treat, they replied, okay. She added, I'll make it even tastier this time. He responded, really? Even better than this. Next, Ilas went into the room to prepare the ingredients for cooking. Then Luxion arrived and asked, what are you doing? She said excitedly, Luxion, look, what do you think? Ilas smiled brightly, enjoying her work. What if I can make something even more delicious than the delicious dishes I've already made? Although he didn't understand, Luxion wanted to help her. First step, she poured a mixture of corn and honey caramel into a large pot. I told you I'd help you stir like this, right? She asked. Yes, stir a little faster, Ilas replied. That way the caramel will coat everything evenly. Then Ilas lit the fire and said, now, stir it a bit more over low heat. Luxion responded excitedly. It smells so good. I can't wait. Well, here's the finished product, she said cheerfully. It's almost done. Finally finished. She offered him some. Do you want to try it? It's my first time making this, so I don't know if it's good or not. Luxion reached out and took some from Ilas's hand, their fingers brushing. The contact made them both blush. It's delicious, he said. Ilas thought to herself. I just touched his lips. Ilas glanced up and shyly looked at Luxion. Their eyes met. The moment was broken by Kian's arrival. I'm starving. Isn't it ready yet? He complained. Almost. Ilas replied. Those who had already finished eating were relaxed and content. This sweet and salty treat is delicious. 10 out of 10. No complaints. Hearing the praise, Ilas beamed. So, we finally used up those old ears of corn. Luxion pointed. You mean these? He asked. Yeah, Ilas replied. Even though they were old, they weren't inedible. But I probably couldn't have used them for anything else. Then she suggested, all right, everyone, take a look at this. It's the Eden Village Revitalization Project, 1-year plan. The others looked at her with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Eden spoke up. So, according to what Ilas is saying, we'll have to welcome people who live elsewhere, even those who aren't here right now, correct? Ilas confirmed, that's right. That's why I called everyone here today. Luxion added, the biggest problem in this village is that many people don't have land or money. The people who live here can't keep living like this. A thoughtful silence fell over the group. Then someone spoke up, I object. Kian looked surprised as Dyrus stood. Ilas tried to reason with him. I know that in a small village like this, the environment will change depending on the neighbors. But we won't be welcoming just anyone. Dyrus remained firm. Even so, I don't agree. He stood up. If you all insist on doing this, I won't stop you. But I won't welcome any newcomers. He quickly turned and walked towards the exit. I'm leaving, he announced, leaving the others stunned. Kian sighed. That guy. He said everything he wanted to say for the entire year today, hasn't he? Then Lisa asked Luxion, do you agree? Yes, I agree, Luxion replied. What Ilas said makes sense. It takes a long time for strangers to reach our village. Focused on the food, Kian finished off the popcorn. First, I'm going to finish this, he said. Although a bit oblivious, Ilas was relieved. I thought everyone would object, she thought. Well, we'll be going then, she announced. If Dyrus doesn't come here for lunch tomorrow, I'll pack some up and ask you to take it to him. Kian laughed and replied, no problem. Then Luxion said, Ilas, you should go home too. Ilas replied, if I leave these caramel pieces on the floor like this, that the ants will come. She picked up a broom and declared, I'll sweep the floor. Luxion, you wash the dishes. Let's finish up quickly. All right, he replied. The two of them set to work, one sweeping and the other washing. Luxion worked while thinking. It's late. Should I ask Ilas to stay the night? I can sleep on the sofa. After Ilas finished, she said, thank you for your hard work. I'll take the popcorn home now. He was surprised. Wait, he shouted. Let me walk you home. That night, they said goodbye. Thank you for walking me. See you tomorrow. Good night. Then Ilas replied, I should go take a bath too. But as she walked up the stairs, she sensed a malicious presence. Strangely, there was no one there. Perhaps the atmosphere made Ilas feel more uneasy. Ilas thought, what should I do? She held her protective necklace. If I call Luxion, he'll be here in 1 or 2 minutes. She almost blew on the necklace. But he might not hear me. Ilas thought again. But what if I call him and there's nothing there? Maybe it's a rat. She mustered her courage to investigate. She held a candle. Is anyone there? She carefully checked in the late night. Nothing. But she noticed the food had been slightly moved. Was that the sound of a plate sliding? I was startled by that sound. Ilas reassured herself. I almost apologized for calling Luxion. When I lived in the forest monastery, I could wander around freely in the middle of the night. Now I'm afraid of the dark after leaving that place. That night, Ilas wasn't quite asleep yet. She was about to write a note. When you return, I will return everything I used. Then she started to write, organizing her thoughts. First, there's me and Luxion, 5 mercenaries, and 6 people in Lisa's farm family, and the villagers who have returned. But everyone is planning to leave. Then Ilas remembered that moment. Mary called out, Luxion. He heard his name. Instinctively, he turned to look. Mary, he said. Hello. She noticed Ilas. Oh my, this girl is... Luxion introduced her. This is Uni's daughter. They were excited to meet each other. Really, it's a pleasure to meet you. Hello, Ilas replied. Luxion asked, will you be staying here? Mary said, actually, I'd really like to. I've been a broker all my life. Then she explained, but now there's no one to support my husband, and no merchants are coming to buy anymore, so I'm planning to go to a nearby big city. Anyway, teaching the children here is difficult. Hearing this, Luxion felt worried and helpless. Even now, Ilas remembered how helpless he looked. Let's try a little harder before more people leave. She wrote down, Eden village population, currently 32 people, down 80 people. The next morning, the farm was peaceful. The beauty of labor was ever present as they tilled the soft soil. That day, Ilas, in a sapphire blue dress, brought them food. I baked some potato bread, she said. Take a break and have something to eat, everyone. They were happy to see the nourishment. Kian asked Ilas, but the field is almost cleared, isn't it? Kian said, it's mostly thanks to Google. He added, he must have really liked what Ilas made for him yesterday. He's been working very hard today. Hearing this, Ilas felt happy. She thought, I have to make a delicious lunch. Come to think of it, it's almost lunchtime. Luxion asked her what's wrong. She responded, what do you mean? He said her face looked a little gloomy. She sighed and silently admitted her worry. I'm fine, Dyrus, but he probably won't be coming for lunch. Kian jokingly said, then I'll eat Dyrus's portion. Interrupting their conversation, Luxion smacked Kian on the head. He clutched his head, confused, while Ilas laughed. Suddenly, the sound of running feet approached them. Lisa shouted, everyone, look, it's Lisa. Lisa, looking panicked and worried, pleaded, please help me find my chicken. Are you guys a little tired? Anyway, Lisa continued, the rooster, the one who protects the other chickens, is gone. Kian pouted and said, maybe the chicken coop wasn't locked. Lisa replied, no, it was definitely locked. The problem is there are no footprints. I checked the entire coop floor, but there's nothing. So, I'm officially commissioning you. Please find the culprit who stole my chicken. Then Luxion mentioned payment. Lisa, not to be outdone, offered unlimited eggs for your house for a month. Hearing this, Ilas eagerly stepped forward. Whoever completes Lisa's task will get free eggs for a month. Holding an egg, she extended a finger. 1 egg a day. Her face was bright with excitement. I'll cook delicious egg dishes for that person. I'm learning 30 royal egg recipes. Lisa, standing behind her, added the first one to catch the culprit wins. Everyone responded with excited oohs. A bowl of soup and a plate of bread were placed on the table. After lunch, I'll go straight to the farm to start investigating. Kian gulped down his soup. The eggs are mine. Luxion, sitting opposite, diligently ate his soup. They're mine. Suddenly, Ilas remembered something. But who do you think stole the chicken? She looked at Luxion, curious. It could unlock and lock the coop and leave no footprints. Is there such a creature? He replied, of course. A monster. To cross the northern mountains, the Siouan people bring very strange creatures. They're mainly used for transportation or attack. Intrigued, she asked, why are there monsters here? He explained, all the Siouan people live beyond the northern mountains. Since monsters are considered important assets to the Siouan, they bring their own monsters back with them. But during the war, they couldn't bring back the monsters that ran away. Taking a spoonful of soup, she said, I see. Her attitude made him a little nervous. She seems interested. Kian quickly ran outside. All right, I'm going to catch the monster. She called after him. Ilas handed Kian a basket. Please give this to Dyrus for me on your way. He replied, okay. She smiled and put on her hat, but was suddenly called by Luxion from behind. Ilas. He smiled and offered, I'll take you home. She was a little surprised. But aren't you going to Lisa's farm? He stepped closer to her and explained, I was planning to, but since there's a monster, I'm worried you'll be in danger. I think you should stay inside. His advice made her unhappy. I want to see the monster too. So Ilas resorted to giving him puppy dog eyes. Luxion will protect me, right? Of course, he was completely captivated. Her appearance made his heart flutter and his face flush. Suddenly, he came to his senses and hugged himself with both arms. Oh my, I can't even take care of myself. Her reaction made her sigh in exasperation. The two walked side by side outside. Hello, she instructed. If there's any danger, you absolutely must run away, okay? Hearing that made him laugh. I know. Luxion thought to himself, she must feel reassured because I'm a mercenary. Thank goodness. Next, he told her to rest. If you're scared, blow the whistle. However, she stuck out her tongue. That won't happen. She stuck her tongue out again at the blue sky and the bright, dazzling sunlight that covered everything. Luxion slowly approached the chicken coop and crouched down, looking inside. According to Lisa, besides her footprints, there aren't any other unusual tracks. Not even chicken tracks. He held a lock marked with 3 scratches in his hand. Are these claw marks? His expression suddenly turned serious as he reasoned. First of all, the thief must be intelligent, since they relocked the coop door before running away. But why would they lock it? Stealing chickens and then wanting to protect them. Kian quickly defended himself. Last time I got scolded for leaving the chicken coop door open. That time, I wasn't counted as the culprit, right? He stood behind a fence, hands on his hips, and turned to look at Lisa. She closed her eyes and thought. Since the total number of chickens lost is 3, she held up 3 fingers. I'll give free eggs to the winner for 3 months. He immediately agreed. That night, Luxion walked outside with a lamp. Kian walked ahead of him. Suddenly, a loud shout found the chickens. They saw white bones and chicken heads scattered around. After eating the chickens, it buried the bones. I wonder what kind of monster it is. He deduced, I'm sure it's a creature with strength and intelligence. Over here at Ilas's house. Ilas was lying in bed with a book in her hand. She opened her eyes, then sat up and rubbed them. I fell asleep before even having dinner. She took a candle and sighed tiredly as she walked out of the room. I wonder if there's any popcorn left. Has Luxion found the monster yet? Suddenly, she stopped. What's that? A sound emerged. Her face darkened. Something's eating my popcorn. She quickly ran away. Unnoticed in the darkness, a pair of eyes glowed. She hid in a room, terrified. Could it be the monster? Suddenly, it slowly approached. Hearing the footsteps, her heart pounded. It's coming upstairs. 2 furry feet were placed on the door. The sound terrified Ilas. It's scratching the door. She clutched her small whistle tightly. Luxion. The loud whistle she blew echoed through the area. Luxion and Kian heard it. Kian was surprised. Huh, isn't that Ilas's whistle? Luxion's brow furrowed. Without a word, he ran off, despite Kian calling his name. Luxion. After hearing the whistle, Luxion ran with all his might. He gritted his teeth and called out Ilas's name in his mind. When he reached her house, he stood outside the fence and shouted, Ilas. She went to the upstairs window, fearfully announcing, Luxion. The monster is downstairs at the door. The noise inside made her speak hurriedly. It's trying to get away. His appearance made her sigh in relief. Thank goodness, Luxion is here. She was still tightly gripping the strange flute. It wasn't an exaggeration. This flute really produced a loud sound, loud enough to be heard from the other side of the mountain. What on earth was this flute? He raised his voice to instruct Ilas. Close your door and hide under the blankets. Absolutely do not come out until I come in. She hesitated, but Luxion's face darkened. He gritted his teeth. A chilling aura emanated from him, making him look terrifying. His appearance frightened her unconsciously. He stepped back, suddenly regaining his composure. Wait, he said, his hand flying to his mouth, tendons visible. Damn it. He remembered earlier when he and Kian were going out. Someone had bumped into his shoulder. Hey, watch where you're going. But the man, upon seeing Luxion's face, had panicked. Trembling, the man clasped his hands and knelt. I am sorry. Please spare me. The action confused him. Why was he acting like that? Seeing this, Kian explained, Do you really not know, boss? Your eyes were terrifying just now. He then started rambling. Just thinking about your eyes gives me goosebumps. Being around you lately, I don't even dare to breathe loudly. In war, the more people a mercenary kills, the more crazed they become. The title of Mercenary King is always respected because, despite killing many, they maintain control. But even Hakan once looked at his own son with such murderous intent. Even someone like him couldn't escape the madness. This made Luxion even more wary of his battle frenzy. The thought made him bury his face in his hands in frustration. Even after so long, I still don't feel at ease. What if Ilas is afraid of me? He startled himself, softly calling out, Ilas. He then kicked the door open with a powerful blow. As the door swung open, he thought the monster retreated to the back. Luxion looked up towards the stairs leading to the upper floor where Ilas was. He quickly thought of a plan. My comrades are almost here. I'm closer to the monster, so I'll chase it. He'll protect Ilas. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he resolutely ran upstairs. As he ran, Luxion called out, Ilas. She opened the door and looked out. Without a word, she lifted her skirt and ran. Seeing this, he thought with difficulty, is she running away? Is she planning to leave the village? The thought barely formed before he rushed after her. Ilas, wait, listen to me. She spun around angrily. You idiot. You're supposed to follow me. She was so frustrated she pulled at her hair. If we work together, we might be able to catch the monster. Or at least, we can figure out what it really is. But he just stood there, looking confused. Her anger still simmering. She stepped closer to him and continued her scolding. Luxion, don't go looking for the monster alone. I can help you. His expression made her think, is he not scared? He quickly recovered, though. All right, fine. In her frustration, she hadn't noticed the broken debris on the ground. Her foot landed on a sharp piece. Seeing this, Luxion quickly grabbed her shoulder. Don't move. Kian appeared at that moment. Luxion, Ilas. He looked up at the newcomer. Then, Dyrus gave a grim order. Kian, you'll pursue the monster in my place. It fled into the forest. Kian's face paled at the words. But all right. The first aid kit was placed on the floor. Do you feel any pain anywhere else? Ilas sat on the bed, watching Luxion kneel as he bandaged her wounds. I'm fine. Suddenly, she felt him examining her leg. What are you doing? He replied, I'm checking to see if you're injured anywhere else. Luxion's eyes lowered with concern. Are you really sure you don't feel any pain anywhere else? Ilas' cheeks suddenly flushed crimson. Yes, she murmured, embarrassed. He looked up at her. I apologize for frightening you earlier. Looking at her, he said, you must have been terrified, right? He stood up, quickly adding, I'm truly sorry. I was worried about you. That's why I acted that way. He turned to pick up the first aid kit, chuckling awkwardly. Your house is a bit messy, haha. I'll stay here tonight. I'll sleep downstairs. Ilas sat quietly and called out, Luxion. He seemed a little flustered at hearing his name. What is it? Ilas said seriously, I was actually quite scared. His words made him panic internally. I already apologized. He thought to himself, I gave off too much of a murderous aura. Her hands unconsciously clenched. Mustering her courage, she suggested, let's sleep together. Luxion said, bewildered, Ilas, what do you mean? Ilas exclaimed, I said I'm scared. She waved her hands, flustered, trying to explain. I know it's ridiculous to be scared of those things at my age. But when that monster scratched at the door, I was really scared. She patted the spot next to her. Come lie down next to me. He was momentarily surprised. She's not afraid of me, but of the monster. Luxion walked over and slowly lay down on the bed. But I haven't changed my clothes yet. She said it's okay. He lay down, and she lay beside him, fearfully saying, after that monster finished the popcorn, it was going to eat me. When it climbed to the second floor, I thought I was done for. Luxion looked up at the ceiling, chuckling to himself. Well, of course she'd be scared. And so, the two of them chatted. Do you want a blanket? No need. Ilas turned to him, anxiously asking, what exactly was that monster? Clutching the blanket, she said, do you think it ate Lisa's chickens? He looked at her and replied, I'm wondering about that too. He patted her shoulder reassuringly. Everything will be all right. I'll definitely catch it. Ilas snuggled into him and softly replied, Luxion was surprised, his cheeks flushing. She closed her eyes, relieved. Having Luxion here is so reassuring, so warm. I'm not alone. She gradually drifted off to sleep. He remained beside her, silently watching over her, his gaze fixed on her. He got up, left the bed, and walked out of the room. Kian said anxiously, there you are. The two began to talk. Hello, how is it? She's asleep. Kian smirked slightly. Luxion frowned. Kian said, to summarize, the monster hunt was a failure. The deeper I went into the forest, the denser the trees and vines became. I couldn't move quickly, but I saw that the monster has wings. Luxion glared at him. A failure, and yet you're so nonchalant. Kian fearfully covered his ears and shouted, don't look at me like that. I ran all the way here from the farm. Do you think chasing a monster through the forest is easy? You try explaining yourself, you have to understand. But I did confirm the monster's size. There are small fragments on the floor. Moreover, I also confirmed the traces the monster left in Ilas's house. From what I can see, the damage. The empty bowl. Probably the caramel popcorn in the kitchen. Kian continued. I checked other places, but there weren't any other traces. It seems like the chicken wasn't enough. Luxion looked at Kian and said, first, you need to be certain it's a monster. We need to prepare a trap. And Ilas is sound asleep in bed. I'll stay with her for now to protect her. Tomorrow morning, under the clear blue sky, after we split into groups, we'll go look for the monster. Okay, the forest search team is Ilas, Luxion, and Kian. The farm search team consists of Ramineros and Eden. Ilas asked curiously, Ramineros, is this the trap? Ramineros nodded and said, you know it. She replied with an embarrassed laugh, I've made it before, Ram. He said confidently, out of everyone here, I'm the best trap maker. I'll give you this. You might just find the monster with it. Ilas mumbled, this will catch the monster if I just throw it, right, Ram? He replied, let me show you. If you want to catch it, you have to wrap it around its neck precisely. When used like this, see? That part will increase the chance of injury. Eden called out, Ram, let's go. The three of them, Ilas, Luxion, and Kian entered a small house. Luxion said, "So we'll check this place first." Ilas turned to Luxion and asked, "Can I clean this place up?" He nodded and replied, "Yeah, we've already confirmed the traces." While sweeping the floor, Ilas picked up a shiny bowl and said, "It ate all the popcorn. It must have been really hungry." Wait a minute. Come to think of it, it wasn't just yesterday. Ilas stared at the bowl in shock. If that thing that was following me that day was the monster. Yesterday could have been. Let's go into the forest now. Come on. After that, the three of them went into the forest to search. Luxion said, "This broken branch is strange." Ilas asked blankly, "Huh? What is?" He turned to her and asked, "Can I hold your waist for a moment?" Ilas, with a puzzled expression, said, "Why suddenly?" Luxion put his arms around her waist. He lifted her onto his shoulders and said, "Bear with me for a moment." He tilted his head slightly and looked at her, saying, "Are you all right?" She replied, a little dazed, "Yeah." "Aren't I heavy?" Luxion chuckled and said, "Not at all." Kian thought to himself, how can they be laughing and joking at a time like this? At that moment, Luxion pointed at the branch and said, "Look closely here." The monster flew in this direction, so the branch broke this way. We've determined the direction. He continued, "Do you two see the broken branch above?" Then Ilas spoke up, "It's broken in a different direction than the branch below." Kian added, "So that means the monster fled back to your house again. Anyway, the monster's target is." Ilas trailed off, "Sweets. Or is it?" Ilas, panicked, pointed at herself and stammered me. Luxion caught her as she swayed. She was still in shock from what had just happened. Could it be that monster? Her face paled as she thought, "It wants to eat me. Why? Does it think I taste better than those mercenaries?" Kian, standing at a distance, asked with concern, "Ilas, are you all right?" She forced a cheerful smile and replied, "Ah, I'm fine." She jokingly thought to herself, maybe it thinks hen meat is tastier than rooster meat, and assumes the same is true for people. She imagined a cute version of herself, blowing a kiss towards a monster, then shuddered, thinking, "Don't tell me that's how the monster sees me." Inside the kitchen, on the table, was a bag of something next to a jar of honey. She stirred a pot on the stove with a long stick, lost in thought. If it's targeting me and the popcorn, it'll be easier to catch, right? Then she smiled mischievously, her expression a little strange. The kitchen door was now wide open, allowing the sweet aroma to waft out. Noticing the spreading scent, she thought excitedly, "This smell will lure it here." Two young men were already outside, waiting for the monster. Kian sat next to the iron cage meant to trap the creature, while Luxion held a rope, ready to restrain the monster. A noise echoed, and both quickly hid in the bushes. "Look, it's here." The monster slowly approached. Luxion quickly pulled the prepared rope. "Gotcha!" he exclaimed. Then the sounds of a struggle erupted. Thump, thump, thud, thud, thump, thump. Ilas, inside the house, pressed against the door, listening to the commotion outside. She was a little worried. What's happening out there? After a struggle, the two finally captured it. Kian, locking the monster in the iron cage side, finally caught it. Luxion, standing beside him, breathed a sigh of relief. After covering the cage with a cloth, they called out to her, "Hello, you can come out now." The monster inside the cage wasn't still, but continuously slammed against the bars, creating loud noises. Hearing their call, she quickly responded. Holding the stick in her hand, she looked at the sharp traps on the ground and muttered, "I should be thankful they caught the monster. If it had gotten inside the house, these traps." She then poked the stick at one of the traps. Ouch! The trap instantly activated, snapping shut. Its sharp teeth quickly severed the stick. Seeing this, she was startled. That would have caused a serious injury. Ilas ran out of the house, asking, "Where's the monster?" The monster growled. Looking inside the cage, she froze, confused. What they call a monster looked exactly like a small dog, trembling inside the cage. Ilas asked incredulously, "Is this really the monster? It looks more like a puppy." Hearing this, Luxion pulled back the cloth, saying, "It's no ordinary puppy." As the cloth was pulled back, she widened her eyes in surprise. The monster actually had wings growing on its back. In disbelief, she asked, "It has wings." The monster looked at her. She frowned and then said, "Oh my." Crouching down next to Kian, she said excitedly, "Is it playing cute to throw us off guard? But it's so adorable." He looked at the monster, agreeing with her. "It is adorable." Luxion, standing behind them, looked a little annoyed at their focus on the creature. She turned to him, a little unsure, and asked, Luxion, what should we do with the monster? The monster, now acting spoiled, lay sprawled in the cage, whimpering, his face expressionless. He replied, slaughter it and roast it. The monster seemed to understand and flinched, whimpering in fear. Suddenly, a loud noise caught their attention. Ilas asked, puzzled, what was that? Luxion also seemed unsure. The monster's here, but where did that sound come from? Kian, as if seeing something, pointed upwards and shouted. Ilas and Luxion followed his gaze. Looking up at the sky, Ilas exclaimed in shock, What is that thing? A bird with 4 wings appeared in the sky, clutching a sheep in its talons. It looked down at them and screeched. Kian stepped forward, shielding Ilas behind him, and stared at the creature. A demonic beast. Ilas frowned and asked the demonic beast. It's a type of monster with a bizarre appearance, like a regular beast, but it's much stronger. It's not from the natural world, but from another world entirely. To be precise, demonic beasts are the product of errors. If magic is used incorrectly, mages can draw power from other worlds and use it. But if the magic fails, it can negatively impact the creatures of that other world. Looking at the demonic beast in the sky, Ilas clutched her head and groaned. Why would a demonic beast appear here? Kian replied, it's the product of a failed spell, as I said. He raised his hand, studying the demonic beast. This one even has a human head. It must be the failed experiment of some witches. Ilas stood beside him, covering her mouth in disbelief as she stared at the creature. Ilas looked at the others, weapons in hand, ready to capture the beast. She said worriedly, how are we going to catch it? I wonder if Lisa is in danger back at the farm. Kian crossed his arms and calmly replied, you don't need to worry about that. Ilas asked, confused, why not? Kian stood to the side, staring intently at the demonic beast. Hearing her question, Kian explained, demonic beasts are flawed creations. Their existence goes against the laws of nature. They're just flawed variations, not particularly powerful. Ilas looked at him admiringly. Luxion, you're so knowledgeable. Luxion chuckled in response. Haha, a witch told me about this once. He then raised his hand. Also, wherever a demonic beast appears, a divine beast will appear as well. Ilas asked, puzzled, the divine beast. Seeing her confusion, Luxion continued to explain. If a demonic beast's existence is strong enough for a divine beast to sense it, the divine beast will come and destroy it for us. That's why witches call divine beasts the punishers. Ilas's face brightened with curiosity. What does a divine beast look like? Luxion stroked his chin. I've never seen one myself. I only know they have wings. Moreover, divine beasts emit a golden aura, something you won't see in a demonic beast. Ilas nodded in understanding. So, they emit an aura. How amazing. Luxion's expression darkened as he glared at the demonic beast. That demonic beast must have eaten the chickens at the farm. He speculated silently. It started by eating small animals to grow stronger. Remembering the detail about the lock, he continued to think. It put the chicken coop lock back in its original place. It must have planned to come back and steal more chickens. Looking at the screeching demonic beast, he concluded that monster must have lost its reason and humanity by now. Just then, the winged creature cried out. Ilas turned to look at it. Oh, right. What should we do with this monster? Looking at the winged creature, Ilas gasped. Heavens! She stared at it as its whole body began to glow. Luxion, it's emitting an aura. The winged creature clung to the iron bars and cried out. It kept crying out. All 3 of them froze, staring at it as it glowed. As if realizing something, they cried out in disbelief, You're a divine beast. Google tried to stab the demonic beast with his sword, but it dodged. He gasped, damn it, I can't touch it. How could the leader capture a demonic beast alone? Ramineros twirled a rope in his hand and said, I'm afraid none of us are a match for it either. Even so, thinking about the reward for capturing the demonic beast, he couldn't give up. If we catch it, we'll get free eggs for 3 months. He raised his sword with determination. No matter what, we have to win. Just then, Luxion's voice called out from behind them, everyone get out of the way. Seeing him, Eden cried out, Luxion's here. Ramineros, who was trying to wrap the rope around the demonic beast's neck, and Google both turned to look. Luxion ran towards them, holding a winged divine beast. The divine beast in Luxion's arms chirped. All 3 of them stared at the divine beast as Luxion ran closer. The demonic beast knocked Google down, who cried out in pain, ouch. Ramineros worriedly tightened his grip on the rope. Eden looked at Luxion in confusion, blurting out, "Huh, why did you bring a puppy here?" "No, wait, it has wings." The divine beast quickly unfurled 4 wings. A complex magic circle appeared behind it. Its mouth opened wide, gathering a powerful energy within. Finally, when the energy was fully charged, it let out a loud cry and attacked the demonic beast. The released energy formed a powerful beam of light that struck the demonic beast. Frightened by the attack, the demonic beast turned and fled. Luxion watched it go and cheered its running away. He pumped his fist excitedly, as expected of a divine beast. Just one attack made the demonic beast run for its life. Looking at the divine beast, he praised, "Good job, little guy." Suddenly, the divine beast whimpered, as if it had lost all its strength, and began to fall. Luxion, caught off guard, exclaimed, "Huh, what's happening? Why so suddenly?" The demonic beast, sensing the divine beast's weakness, turned back and looked on in confusion. Luxion watched as the divine beast, now completely limp, lay on the ground. He couldn't believe how weak it was and started to laugh in exasperation. Ha! He heard a rumbling sound coming from the divine beast's stomach, already weakened by hunger. The divine beast whimpered on the ground. Luxion turned to Google and said, "Google, can I borrow your sword for a moment?" Google held up his sword and said, "Then you have to share the reward eggs with my team." Luxion was speechless for a moment, then replied with a sigh, "Fine." Luxion held the sword and looked off into the distance. To ensure Ilas's safety, he kept his identity as Hawkins' younger brother's secret. Ilas and Kian called out to him from afar, "Luxion." They had to cross several hills to reach him, taking about 3 minutes. Their view was obstructed by trees. The demonic beast had returned and was growling at Luxion. Luxion raised his sword, smiling confidently at the demonic beast. "Come on." Ilas and Kian ran closer. As they neared, they saw the demonic beast lying on the ground, Luxion's sword beside it. Ilas, covered in sweat after running, looked at the demonic beast's carcass on the ground and exclaimed in surprise, "Luxion, you caught the demonic beast." He patted Google, who was holding a sword, and said, "Just assume he caught it." Hearing that, she looked at him and praised, "Google defeated the demonic beast. How impressive." He didn't argue, but replied with a laugh, "Hee, it was nothing. I caught the demonic beast, so the eggs are safe." While he was speaking, another voice shouted, "No." Lisa appeared at that moment, clutching her head as if about to faint. She cried out in anguish, "My sheep, my poor sheep." Lisa collapsed, looking at the sheep as if about to cry. Impossible. Seeing her like this, Ilas gently went over to support her. Inside the room, candles placed on the table were burning, illuminating the space. Ilas spoke sadly to Luxion, although there were no further losses of chickens, for sheep were eaten. "So, it seems we failed Lisa's request." Ilas looked at the small creature lying on her lap. "We did our best. No one wanted this to happen." Luxion stood to the side, looking sleepy. At this moment, he stepped forward and picked up the small creature. "The demonic beast has been caught. The little one should return to its world, too." Seeing him pick it up, she looked at him in surprise. The creature sleepily opened its eyes. It slipped out of his hands and flew over to her, nuzzling her and whimpering. He watched in surprise as it flew to her. Ilas happily asked it, "Why are you so attached to me?" He looked at it, then touched his chin thoughtfully. "It must like you. It seems to like sweets too." Hearing this, she touched her hair. "This morning, I melted caramel to lure the demonic beast. I just noticed the caramel stuck to my hair." She said with annoyance, "No wonder my hair felt sticky." He looked at her and chuckled. Then he turned to her and said, "Wait a moment, let me fill the bathtub for you." Ilas, looking tired, yawned and replied, "Thank you." She stroked the little creature's head and asked, "Little one, do you want a bath?" It looked at her quizzically. Ilas looked at the creature and thought to herself, "I was planning to adopt a wolf pup from the market, but now that I have you, I wonder if it's okay not to adopt it anymore." "All right." Ilas asked the creature, "Will you stay with me while you're here? I'll feed you every day." Hearing this, it happily flapped its wings and chirped. Seeing its apparent agreement, she said cheerfully, "Okay, then I'll give you a name." After preparing the bath, he returned and told her, "Ilas, I've filled the tub." Seeing her and the creature fast asleep, he tried calling Ilas. Seeing them sound asleep, he smiled gently. He picked up Ilas and the creature. Carrying her to her room, he thought, since Ilas's house is nearby, I'll let her sleep here. He then laid her on the bed, tucked her in, and murmured, a good night's sleep is the best medicine. After a long day, he also felt tired and yawned deeply. I should go to sleep too. The happy creature, sinking into sleep, chirped. Then he got into bed beside them and fell into a deep sleep. 3/4 of Elden Village had gained a new little creature. Outside, a carriage was waiting. Luxion stood outside the door and called, hello, are you ready? Wait a moment, I'm looking for my hat. She searched, wondering, where is it? Then she saw her little creature holding her hat and bringing it to her. Oh, after putting on her hat, she hugged the creature and smiled happily. My king, you're a genius. A little while later, Ilas's voice rang out from the moving carriage. I wonder how to call the king outside. As soon as she finished speaking, a cute bark, woof woof, echoed from inside the carriage. Just then, Luxion asked curiously, what's a king? She smiled brightly and replied, oh, it's my puppy's name. It is Zura. Isn't that the name of the divine beast from the legends of the northern mountains? That's right. Legend says that before any living creature appeared in the mortal world, the divine beast descended, carrying a brilliant golden light. The divine beast dug the earth to create a lake, and the piled-up earth formed the mountains. Weakened by age, Itazura breathed its last in the north. Its bones became the northern mountain range, as it is today. Its fur transformed into the coniferous forest that covers the entire mountain range. Seeing her cheerful smile, he couldn't help but smile wryly as well. It's certainly a meaningful name. She looked at the puppy and explained its name. Itazura is a bit long, so I just call him you. Right, you. Woof. Kian, who had been listening in, finally spoke up. I think CU is a cuter name. He then told the puppy, isn't that right? Kuku, terigrik zin kuku. Ilas covered Yu's ears and scolded Kian. Don't teach my king such nonsense. You, don't listen to him. Only Luxion seriously warned the puppy. Listen carefully to what I say. If you go outside alone, looking at Yu's unique appearance, he seemed a little worried. Someone bad might kidnap you. Moreover, if people learn about the existence of the divine beast, those who want to possess it will surely come to this village immediately. Thinking of this, he immediately threatened you. If you go out on your own, Ilas won't feed you anymore. You immediately looked around fearfully and barked. The scene was so comical that everyone burst into laughter. Ahaha! Elsewhere, in a bustling metropolis, the carriage carrying the three of them arrived. Ilas stepped down with you. We're here. Seeing how beautiful the place was, she exclaimed in admiration. She looked incredibly excited. Deva is the largest city among the villages nearby. A large market is held here once a month. Looking at the tallest building in the distance, she asked, does the mercenary king live in that building? The lord of Deva died in the war. Afterward, the heir and their entire family were also hunted down and killed. Because of that, Deva now belongs to the empire. The emperor granted the title and land to Hakan, who saved his life. Noticing Luxion's bundled-up appearance, she asked, have you ever seen the mercenary king, Luxion? The mercenary king, he stammered, scratching his neck. Seeing his hesitation, she thought suspiciously, judging by his expression, even though they live near Hakan City, he's probably never seen him. Thinking this, she discreetly comforted him. Luxion, if you train hard from now on, I believe that someday you'll become a great mercenary like Hakan. He was quite surprised by her words. Huh. She encouraged him to cheer up and not be so glum. Be strong. Your two companions are Kian and the guy who was driving the carriage earlier, teasing you. Luxion, work hard to become the king of mercenaries, okay? Right. From now on, drink lots of milk, and you also need to practice your swordsmanship more. Those two made him so angry. Thinking about those jerks, he was so furious he gave them both a beating. Afterward, he cheerfully asked Ilas, so what's our plan for today? Holding a piece of paper and walking ahead, she said, first, we'll go to the livestock market. She continued, we'll buy all the animals Lisa raises like cows, horses, sheep, pigs, and chickens. She arrived at the livestock market, and Lisa gave her a basket of chicken eggs. Hello, this is the last gift I'll give you. She asked, what do you mean by last gift? Lisa gave a strained laugh and said, I have to sell the sheep's wool to make money. Like this time, a few sheep were slaughtered. My father said it's best for me to go back to town. Hearing that Lisa was about to leave, she felt very reluctant. Please take care of yourself. "Oh, Lisa, don't go. There must be some other way." When Lisa had walked a short distance, she ran after her and called out, "Wait, Lisa, I have an idea that might be helpful for both of us." Elsewhere, inside a room, two people were negotiating. "So, I'll go buy the livestock and bring them here, and you'll raise them," she said with certainty. "Exactly. The plan will be called cooperative livestock farming. Everyone in the surrounding area uses this method. I want to raise cows and sheep, but I don't have a farm." "You have a farm, but you don't have any livestock to raise, right? I'll take 70% of the profits from the livestock production, and the remaining 30% will be yours. When the livestock are sold, you'll get 10% of the total amount. And when the livestock give birth, I'll own the first 3 offspring. The 4th and subsequent offspring will be yours." Hearing this attractive offer, Lisa hesitated and thought it over. Then, her mind cleared, and she readily agreed. "I agree. Let's start the plan." She picked up a pen and signed her name in black ink on the white paper. The two were overjoyed at their successful business partnership. Happy cooperation. After the thorough discussion, Ilas said, "So, Luxion and I will go to the livestock market." She cheerfully held up 3 fingers and instructed, "Everyone, let's meet back here in 3 hours after completing our tasks. Carry out your assigned tasks, and we'll meet here in 3 hours, okay?" While everyone was distracted, a pink-haired girl stared intently at Ilas's back. Ilas and Luxion wandered into a marketplace. Luxion said, "The livestock market is this way. The smell is awful, so I'll wait here." Ilas curiously asked, "Luxion, don't you want to look around the market?" Hearing this, he shyly pulled his hood down. "Because I don't really like crowded places. Don't you remember what Lisa said back then?" Lisa had instructed Ilas, "When you get to Deva, be sure to take Luxion with you. He's worked on a farm since he was little, so he has a good eye for livestock." Luxion said with exasperation, "Even if you hadn't told me, I would have gone." Ilas was surprised. "So he worked on a farm. I just learned about this." Returning to the present, Ilas smiled and asked, "Do you like working on a farm?" Luxion looked away. "No." Ilas wondered, "If you don't like it, why did you work on Lisa's farm?" Luxion explained, "It's because I've always wanted to ride horses since I was a child." He recounted, "I always begged my father to buy me a horse. But my father said if you're a northern man, you have to tame a wild horse yourself." Luxion looked bewildered. Then he sighed. "So, to ride a horse, I had no choice but to work on a farm." Ilas felt sympathetic. "Your father must be very strict." Luxion pulled aside his hat and showed her a scar behind his ear. "Actually, a while ago, I was chasing a wild horse, and I accidentally rolled down a cliff and got injured." She saw the scar near his ear. Ilas was surprised to see it. She reached out and touched the scar. Luxion suddenly blushed. She quickly withdrew her hand. "I'm sorry, did I hurt you?" Luxion pulled his hat back down to cover his face. "Oh no, not at all." He wondered why. His ears turned red with embarrassment. "It's just, I didn't like that. It felt like a needle prick." He quickly walked away. "Come on, let's go." Ilas was startled. "Luxion," she called out, "wait for me. Why are you acting like this?" They walked towards the chicken coop. "This smell is unbearable." Luxion asked Ilas, "How much livestock are you planning to buy?" She checked her list. "Let me see. I'll buy about 200 chickens, 50 sheep, 30 pigs, and," she continued, 10 cows, 2 horses. Luxion was astonished. "You're buying that much?" Then Luxion led Ilas away. "Let's look at the chickens first." The farmers around them, seeing a wealthy customer, greeted them warmly. "Welcome. All our chickens are healthy. Look at these fresh eggs. Please, take your time." Once there, Luxion said, "We'll check the chicken's vents first." He explained, if a chicken is sick, it's most apparent in the vent. He also offered further advice. And if even one chicken in the merchant's flock is infected, it's best not to buy any of them. Chickens easily transmit diseases to each other, so the ones near a sick chicken are also very likely to be infected. Suddenly, Ilas's puppy came to sniff the chickens. Then it growled angrily. "Voo!" Ilas bent down and asked, "You don't want me to buy chickens from here?" Vua barked again. Luxion agreed. "That's right. I don't think we should buy chickens from here either." Hearing this, Ilas picked up her puppy and praised it. "My feo is so smart." Suddenly, someone standing at a distance saw Vua and was surprised. "Isn't that the puppy?" A scruffy-looking girl approached and asked, "So cute. Can I pet him?" Ilas, surprised, didn't know what to say. She readily handed Vua to the girl. "Sure, his name is Vua." Meanwhile, the girl's other hand stealthily reached for Ilas's pocket, attempting to pickpocket her. Luxion noticed just in time and slapped the girl's hand. The girl, angered, was speechless. She immediately ran away. Luxion warned, "You have to be careful. There are a lot of pickpockets here." Ilas replied sheepishly, "I know. I just let my guard down a little because Luxion was with me." Luxion asked, "Even so, what if I wasn't protecting you?" Ilas quickly said, "That wouldn't happen." Luxion was taken aback. "That wouldn't happen. What if I stole from you?" Ilas was surprised. "Luxion, stealing from me?" He replied, "Yeah, anything is possible." She smiled. "Then try stealing from me and see what happens." Luxion pretended to reach out his hand. Kian, Ilas, seeing this, asked him, "Do you think I'm easily fooled?" Luxion tilted his head towards Ilas, flashing a bright smile. "You've already fallen into my trap." Ilas, surprised, asked what. Luxion flipped a coin. Surprised, she checked her pocket. "How? When did you?" Luxion replied, "It's a secret. Do you really want to know?" Ilas nodded. Luxion handed her the coin and asked for her purse. "Let me explain," he offered. Ilas, confused, asked, "My purse?" At this point, Luxion confessed, "Actually, I never stole anything from you." This surprised Ilas even more. He held up the purse. "You gave me this purse willingly. How could you call me a thief?" Ilas still looked confused. Luxion concluded, "See, that's why you need to be more careful." Seeing Ilas's crestfallen expression, a panicked Luxion said, "Hey, I was just teasing. Don't take it so hard." She reassured him, "Don't worry, I won't let anyone fool me." Looking up, she added, "I only let my guard down because it's you, Luxion." He blushed at her words. Flustered, he turned to leave. "This is crazy," he muttered, urging her to take her purse. "Why am I getting so worked up over what Ilas said?" She playfully punched him in the back. "Try to trick me again, and I really won't let you get away with it." Luxion suggested, all right, let's go look at the livestock." Even Do, the puppy, sighed at their antics. They arrived at the sheep pen and began discussing their options. "Different sheep breeds are suited for different purposes," Luxion explained. Luxion tested her knowledge. "What criteria should we use to choose a sheep? Wool or milk?" Ilas replied, "With cows, milk production is more important. But with sheep, we prioritize wool." She added, "Besides, it's quite cold in the north, so wool is good for selling or for our own use." She said to Do, "Come on, boy." The puppy eagerly hopped onto the backs of the sheep. "We need to consider their cold tolerance, their diet, and check for any problems with their hooves or teeth." The puppy examined each sheep before suggesting one to Ilas. "What do you think?" he seemed to ask. Ilas replied, "Oh, this one looks good." They moved on to the pig pen, where Do continued his helpful selection process, and then to the stables, where he did the same. Thanks to Do, buying livestock was quick. After the purchase, the owner looked at the order form and said, "You've made excellent choices. You have a keen eye." Ilas smiled and said, "We were able to choose so quickly thanks to Do once they were finished." Luxion said, "Now, let's go to the bank to transfer the money to the merchant." Ilas asked, "Why not just pay them in cash?" Luxion explained, "With such a large sum, it's better to transfer it." He added, "After we get the transfer confirmation stamp, we'll give the receipt to the merchant." He continued, "And they'll deliver the livestock to our farm." Ilas said, "I see." Suddenly, Do caught a delicious scent. Do was completely captivated by the aroma. Ilas asked, surprised, "Do, what is it, boy?" Luxion also seemed entranced. That familiar, rich smell of butter. They looked toward the bakery. The smell of bread wafted out. Ilas stood outside the bakery, looking in. So everyone inside was kneading dough. Delicious fresh bread was displayed on trays. These loaves, I've only ever seen them in books before. Ilas watched the bakers in amazement. I've always wondered how they shaped the bread. Now I get to see it with my own eyes. Suddenly, a baker noticed something. He rushed over to where Ilas was standing and slammed the door shut, preventing her from looking inside. Ilas was surprised. Why would they do that? Is it not allowed to watch? Luxion suggested, "Should we try going inside?" Ilas smiled and replied, "Okay." But in front of them, a long line of people were waiting to buy bread. The bakery owner called out, "Come one, come all. This is our new bread." She introduced the bread. This bread has a uniquely delicious flavor, with the characteristic sweetness of brown sugar from the south. She bent down and offered a piece to a small dog. "Do you want to try some?" Ilas also tried the bread. The three of their taste buds were instantly captivated. The crust was crispy, and the inside was both sweet and soft. The owner announced, "Today only, we have a special offer. Buy 5, get 1 free. Each loaf is 1 redma. 5 redma will get you 6 loaves." Ilas was disheartened. "That's so expensive. 1 redma can buy 4 loaves of black bread." Suddenly, the owner looked at the tray of sample bread and announced, "They're all gone already." She smiled brightly and added, "I don't know when the next shipment of brown sugar will arrive. If you don't buy today, you might have to wait several months to get this bread again." A customer behind them called out, "Excuse me, I'll take 10 loaves." Another customer chimed in, "I'll take 5. Hearing this, the three of them couldn't contain their excitement. "Let us buy some too." They looked at the delicious loaves displayed on the table. "There are so many kinds of bread in the empire." Luxion said, "Look, they don't have soft bread like this in the north." Ilas agreed. Luxion explained, "Rye grows better than wheat in the north, so it's difficult to make soft bread." He looked around, pondering, "Which one should we buy? They all look so good. Let's just buy them all." Ilas decided. Luxion agreed. The two of them walked out of the bakery. "Thank you for your patronage. Please come again." Suddenly, Ilas looked in a certain direction. They opened the door again. She noticed the girl from the livestock farm. She thought to herself, "What's going on?" The girl's hand hung limply, not reaching for the bread. Luxion, standing beside her, said, "Ilas, give those to me. They're too heavy for you." She replied, "Oh, thank you." Suddenly, a baker from inside shoved the girl. "What do you want? Are you trying to steal something? Get out of here." Luxion also noticed the girl's paralyzed arm. It must be very difficult for her to move it. He then urged, "Ilas, let's just leave her alone." However, Ilas kept looking back at the girl. Why was she staring at the bakery like that? She wondered, her heart filled with concern. The girl looked dejected, as if she was about to cry. Ilas, holding the bags in her hands, said cheerfully, "It's so much fun to be able to shop like this. But carrying all of this around might be a bit." Understanding her concern, Luxion smiled and said, "If you want to look around the market some more, it would be inconvenient. Let's go to the baggage check." Then he held out his hand toward the dog beside him and said, "Do you bring your things too?" After tossing his things to Luxion, the dog ran off to play. Seeing this, Luxion said exasperatedly, Don't you remember what I told you? Don't run around." After arriving at the baggage check, he instructed the attendant, "We'll be back to pick up our things in 3 hours." Seeing this, Ilas happily thought, compared to others, Luxion is truly the best. He brings a sense of comfort and reliability. A happy expression appeared on her face. "If I ever leave Elden Village, I wonder if I'll ever find another man like Luxion." At the same time, Luxion looked towards her. He approached and asked, "Ilas, what are you thinking about?" Realizing she'd been caught, she quickly waved her hand and said, "Oh, it's nothing, nothing at all." With a gentle expression, he said, "There are many restaurants here. I'll eat anything. You can choose whatever you want." Looking at the surrounding restaurants, Luxion said, "The food here is pretty good. But today, I want to take you somewhere special." After arriving at the restaurant, the waiter led them to an empty table. "You can dine with your pet on the balcony." Arriving at the spot, Ilas exclaimed in surprise, "Wow." Looking at the beautiful view of the village below, she happily praised, "It's so beautiful." After a moment of awe, Ilas turned to her dog and said, You can eat with us too. You're the best." The dog barked in response. Looking at the long line of people below, she curiously asked, "There's such a long line down there." Hearing this, Ilas turned her head in surprise and asked, "Is Hakan currently in the city?" Facing the customer's question, the waiter smiled and replied, "As far as I know, he's not currently in the city. But not long ago, officials from the royal family arrived and started working in the city. So even though Hakan is absent, people still line up like this." Hearing this, Ilas was a little confused. They're waiting even though they don't know when he'll return. The waiter cheerfully replied, "That's right." With a look of admiration, she said, "Just being able to see his face makes the wait worthwhile." Then she held out the menu to Ilas. "Please take a look at the menu, miss." While reading the menu, Ilas curiously asked, "Hakan is amazing. How outstanding is he to be so revered by the people?" After a long silence, Luxion gently asked, "Do you want to meet Hakan, Ilas?" Hearing this suggestion, Ilas responded flustered, "I don't know. Before I kick the bucket, I wonder if I'll be able to see his face." Hearing this, Luxion also responded awkwardly, "Hypothetically, if you had the chance, would you want to meet him?" Surprised by this question, Ilas froze for a moment. Then she suddenly laughed and said, "Luxion, you're such a joker. It sounds like you could actually help me meet him. Honestly, I don't really want to meet him." Luxion, holding a glass of water, nodded smugly and smiled. After hearing her say that, he asked in surprise why. With a very annoyed tone, Ilas explained, "Before coming here, I thought he was a great man." Hearing this, Luxion dejectedly asked, "Realized what?" Ilas lifted her glass of water and, with a dangerous look, said, "The king is just a hollow title. The surrounding areas, including Elden Village, are ruled by Lord Hakan, right? If so, he should at least be responsible for managing his territory. But now, no one even knows his whereabouts." She slammed her glass down on the table angrily. If he doesn't want to manage it, he shouldn't call himself king. Hearing this, Luxion fearfully explained, Lord Hakan didn't want to be king. The emperor forced the title on him, so he had no choice. Hearing this, Ilas asked in surprise, "You understand Lord Hakan that well?" The atmosphere sank into silence. After a long while, Luxion scratched his head and mumbled, "Lord Hakan has his reasons." He then explained, aside from important battles, he rarely shows his face. He continued, "That's why officials from the Imperial Palace are sent to work in the city. They're good at managing the land." Ilas's expression grew more serious. "So Lord Hakan delegates the work he hates to them. I think he's neglecting his duties." Luxion fell silent, unsure what to say. His face fell, sadly thinking, Ilas is right. You can't just push off work you hate onto others. As king, he has to take responsibility for all his duties. Luxion scratched his neck and concluded, he can't rely on others forever. At that moment, Ilas suddenly realized something. "Oh no, I went too far," she worried, thinking she should have been more careful about speaking ill of King Hakan. She called out, "Luxion, Suddenly, a shout interrupted her. "Got you, pickpocket." Hearing this, Ilas looked down, asking suspiciously, "Pickpocket?" She saw an older man in a suit yelling and pinning down a thief who was being held by soldiers. The thief struggled, shouting, "Let me go." Ilas recognized the man. "Luxion, isn't that the man we met at the livestock market?" The man in the suit continued to yell, "I saw this brat pickpocketing at the restaurant." Sheila fearfully struggled, shouting, "Let me go." Ignoring the surrounding crowd, the man pointed at her face and said, "You look like you're from the Empire. So why are you stealing in the north instead of begging in the capital?" Sheila was momentarily stunned, then angrily retorted, "Do you think I like coming to the filthy land of you northerners?" Infuriated by her insolence, the man yelled, "What did you just say?" With that, a resounding slap landed on Sheila. "As an imperial citizen, you dare to be arrogant here." After the slap, he grabbed her collar. "Listen here, a little imperial brat, like you can't even think about leaving after spouting such words. This city is ruled by Lord Hakan. He saved everyone here, yet you dare to steal and insult the North." The surrounding people joined in. "That's right. How dare you insult the North?" Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted, "Take her to the palace." Another voice chimed in, "Yes, let the one authorized by Lord Hakan punish her." The man in the suit from earlier suddenly smirked and said, "There's no need for such a bother." He reached inside his jacket as if to pull something out. "Since this is the territory of the mercenary king, Hakan," he pulled out a small knife that I will punish her according to mercenary law. He looked at Sheila. "Do you know mercenary law? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth." He stepped closer to her. "I'll take the money for the person you robbed. But it seems you don't have a single cent, do you?" He grabbed her arm threateningly. "In that case, I'll cut off the part you used to commit the crime." Sheila cried out in fear, "No, please don't cut off my hand." She squeezed her eyes shut, trembling. "No." Suddenly, Luxion leaped from behind the man and landed squarely on his head. Ilas cheered. "Luxion, good job." Holding onto her hat, Ilas grinned. "Wait for me." She then turned and climbed down. Startled by Luxion's sudden attack, the man yelled in pain, "Ow." He grabbed Luxion and threatened, "You mutt." Before he could do anything, an apple hit him squarely in the face. Stunned by the unexpected blow, he fell flat on the ground. Luxion looked down from above with utter disdain. Upon reaching the ground, Ilas pointed at the surrounding people and yelled, "Release her." The crowd reacted indignantly. "Who are you? Are you with this thief?" Suddenly, Luxion picked up the knife from the ground and spun it in the air. Then he abruptly caught it and pointed it at them. The people around them paled. His skills. He's definitely not ordinary. Seeing their hesitation, Ilas grew bolder. "The North is an empire now, right? So we should follow imperial law, shouldn't we?" Ilas continued, oblivious to Luxion brandishing the knife menacingly behind her. Looking at the people before her, she asked, "Do any of you have any objections?" The man in the suit had regained consciousness. Ilas addressed him, You woke up at the right time. I'm going to the palace to report this girl's crime. You're involved, so you'll have to come with me. The man flew into a rage. What? I have to go to the palace because of a pickpocket. Seeing the situation turn against him, he turned and ran. Consider yourself lucky. Ilas turned to the other man. Let me carry her. He replied, sure. But as he lifted the unconscious Sheila, he realized something. How can she be so light? This girl must be around 10 years old. Ilas asked, perplexed, what should we do? Suddenly, a voice called out from behind them. Excuse me. A figure cloaked in black pleaded, that child belongs to our gang. Please give her back to us. Seeing the newcomer, Luxion frowned. More of them. In contrast, Ilas was surprised. A gang? You mean her family? Seeing she was about to be tricked, he gave a sleazy grin and said, I'll take the little girl home. Before he could finish his sentence, Ilas interrupted, hold on. I don't like that. I want to take her to the royal palace. Anyone dare to come with me? Hearing this, he panicked and stammered, the palace. But you wanted to save the girl, didn't you? Ilas replied, save her? Yes, but she still needs to be punished. Then, she put on a generous expression and said, first, I'll call the guards. Realizing their scheme had been seen through, they angrily left. Damn it. After they were gone, Ilas angrily cursed. See, I knew they were lying. Luxion. Hearing this, Luxion couldn't help but praise her. Good job, Ilas. Ilas huffed. Finally, Ilas made a decision. We can't just leave her alone. Let's take her to the clinic, Luxion. That evening, a woman ran around, shouting Sheila's name. Sheila, Sheila. Just then, a blindfolded woman appeared and asked, are you looking for your sister? Clinging to this hope, the woman quickly asked, have you seen Sheila? The blindfolded woman honestly replied, she was taken this morning for pickpocketing at the restaurant. Your sister. Hearing this, Sheila's sister cried out in fear. What did you say? Tears welled up in her eyes. So, does that mean Sheila was taken to the royal palace? The blindfolded woman, not wanting to get involved further, simply shrugged helplessly. No, I heard the people there say that 2 people took Sheila into a carriage and left. After a long silence, Sheila's sister frantically asked, which way did they go? Startled by her sudden movement, the blindfolded woman tried to calm her down. I don't know. That way I think. Hearing the answer she wanted, Sheila's sister ran off, shouting Sheila's name. A young woman in a hooded cloak gently carried a tray of freshly baked pastries. From behind, a little girl ran up excitedly, shouting, Sister, I want to eat the pastries you made. Then, Sheila abruptly woke up, still murmuring, Sister. She rubbed her eyes, looking around in confusion. Where am I? At the same time, a dog barked at her, seemingly in greeting. Hearing the noise, Sheila looked down. Before her was a golden dog with wings. This confused her. Huh, a dog with wings. After that, she screamed, Ah! Hearing the noise from inside the room, Ilas opened the door and asked kindly, Are you awake? Seeing her, Sheila pointed at the dog fearfully and asked, Where am I? And what is that? Can it fly? Is it a monster? Ilas chuckled. Don't be afraid. Void doesn't bite. Seeing the strange creature flying towards the blonde woman, Sheila stammered, but. Then, as if realizing something, she stopped. What happened? I remember almost getting my wrist cut off near the restaurant. The scene flashed through Sheila's mind, and she calmed down. Ilas approached and introduced herself. What's your name? I'm Ilas. Sheila sniffled. I'm Priscilla. Just call me Sheila. Ilas came closer. All right, I remember. Sheila, your ribs are bruised, so move slowly, okay? At that moment, Luxion entered and asked, Is she awake? Ilas happily announced, Yes. Her name is Priscilla. Unlike Ilas, Sheila fearfully thought, Is he a northerner? Suddenly, she cried out, Where am I? Luxion explained, This is Elden Village. Hearing the name, the girl thought in alarm. This is the first time I've heard of this village. Without hesitation, she immediately asked, Is it far from Deva? I have to get back to Deva quickly. Hearing her question, Luxion calmly explained, It would take several hours by carriage from here to Deva. At that moment, Ilas, who was beside her, also explained, Sheila, you've been unconscious for 3 days. Hearing that she had been unconscious for 3 days, the girl cried out in alarm. What? 3 days? Immediately, the girl hurriedly tried to get out of bed. I have to go back to Deva right now. However, Ilas stopped her. No, you must rest first. Where do you think you're going in this condition? Despite Ilas's attempts to stop her, the girl continued to struggle, wanting to leave. Luxion spoke up, Wait. Looking down at the girl from above, he said, Ilas has been by your side, taking care of you for 3 days and 3 nights. Initially, we planned to take you to the royal palace for punishment, but in the end, we decided to bring you here to be cared for. Shouldn't you be grateful? Hearing this, Sheila hesitated for a moment. After regaining her composure, she resolutely demanded to go back. I have to return to my sister. Her hand is paralyzed. She can't live without me. She must be searching for me everywhere. So I have to go now. As she said this, the girl suddenly collapsed backward, unconscious. Seeing this, Ilas cried out in fear, Sheila. After placing the girl back on the bed, Luxion concluded she must be exhausted. With her weak health, and all that yelling and crying. Hearing this, Ilas said sadly, I thought she didn't have a family, which is why she resorted to stealing. That's why I brought her to Elden Village. I never thought I would separate her from her sister. Luxion didn't say anything, but just stared at her. Then he smiled and said, in this condition, Priscilla can't return to Deva. Kian and I will go there and then come back. Internally, Kian wanted to scream, why do I have to go too? Hearing him, Ilas anxiously called out, Luxion. Before she could stop him, Luxion said resolutely, I was the one who brought her here. I should take responsibility too. As he spoke, he put on his cloak. Don't feel guilty anymore. After being comforted, Ilas smiled and said, thank you. Before leaving, he didn't forget to remind her she can't move, but it's better if you still hide all your valuables. Knowing Luxion's worry, Ilas cheerfully waved goodbye. I know. Be careful on your journey. Hearing this, Luxion couldn't help but blush. It's not so bad having someone waiting for me to come home. At the same time, in the quiet forest, Dyrus was quietly fishing. His bucket was now full of live, jumping fish. On his way back, he suddenly discovered a strange object lying on the ground. Dyrus wondered, what's this? Looking at the purple-haired woman lying trembling on the ground, still calling Sheila's name, he looked down at her and wondered, someone from the Empire. For a moment, he felt a little confused. Memories flashed through his mind. Strangers are scary. I remember that. My parents were very hospitable, even to those who... A familiar memory surfaced in his mind. On that night, a stranger walked into his house and said sincerely, I'm sorry to knock on your door so late at night. Seeing the stranger, his mother calmly patted Dyrus's head and said, don't be so formal. It's just our family living alone in the forest, so we always welcome visitors. Right, Dyrus? The man burst out laughing. That strange bastard took my parents' lives. After that incident, countless wanted posters for the man were issued. I became a mercenary to avenge my parents. At that time, Luxion was also pursuing that bastard. The memory flashes back to the moment the two met. Luxion approached me and asked, are you also chasing that serial killer? One night, the moment we caught him, looking at the two young people in front of him, the man fearfully pleaded, please spare my life. Luxion said nothing and silently sheathed his knife. He let me deal with him. Without any hesitation, Kian lunged at him with the knife. In the dark night, a painful scream echoed everywhere. Countless drops of blood splattered onto Kian. Since it was his first time killing someone, he couldn't help but be frightened. Panting, he wiped the blood off his face with his sleeve. From then on, Luxion and I were always together. We stopped at Elden Village. Back in the present, looking at the woman lying on the bed, Kian thought awkwardly, well, this girl is also a stranger. He rubbed his forehead in frustration. I brought trouble upon myself again.